You're listening to Zap Night, a video game review podcast. Join your hosts as we review video games from all systems and all genres. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Zap Night. I'm your host, Danny.
I'm your co-host, Kaylie.
Kaylie, we are on episode 81, and we're talking about Final Fantasy X. It's been a long time coming. And guys, strap yourselves in for a long podcast, because these typically are pretty long. We're going to do our best to go over the story somewhat quickly, but if at any point you wish to skip past the story, I'll put a timestamp in the description so that you know where you need to go to. I'll let you know when we're going to start talking about the story. But we did finish it within the month, which is good. Yay. Sometimes we have to take 2 months to do it, but I think we did pretty good this month. My final time was like, I should have pulled up the official numbers, but it was like 42 or 43 hours, and yours was like 41, something like that. So, you know, around the 40-hour mark. Which is pretty normal for a Final Fantasy, especially early Final Fantasies. I think the later ones get a little longer. But I don't know. I was kind of expecting this game to be a lot longer, and we kind of went through it pretty quick.
Yeah. It felt like it went really quick.
Yeah.
To me, anyway. By the end, I was recording my time, and I'm like, wow, it doesn't seem like it was 40 hours.
I think there was a moment about halfway through where I looked at how many hours I had in it, and I'm like, is that right? Does that say 20? I'm like, huh.
You know, I did hit some stuff that I was like, man, I thought this was later in the game. Because, like, some of the stuff that you do in the beginning, I was like, I thought this was, like, halfway game stuff. Oh, no.
Yeah. Yep. So, the game is developed by Squaresoft back before it was Square Enix, but Final Fantasy X was released on the PS2 in 2001, and then they decided to remaster it for just about every game system after like 2008. So they released it on the PS3, the PS4, the Vita, the Switch, the Xbox One, and I think Steam has it as well. And the Xbox One version and the Switch version were just released in 2019. So, I mean, they're still pushing this game out. As Square has been known to do with all of their games, they just, like, keep releasing them over and over again.
Money.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense because people keep buying it. Yeah. So, I mean, who are they to deny people, you know...
Yep.
Who are they to deny money?
Right.
All right, so we are going to talk about the story. Like I said, if you want to skip it, you absolutely can. But as I've said in every single Final Fantasy, I gleaned so much more from this story than I ever have before. I mean, unless you've sat down and you've watched videos about Final Fantasy X's storyline and, you know, maybe it's your favorite game and you know everything about Final Fantasy X. But otherwise, from like a casual point of view, playing it this time around, I picked up so much stuff, and we're going to go over, you know, maybe some theorizing too along the way of what actually is going on in the universe of Final Fantasy X that isn't explicitly told during the story. So, you know, if that's your cup of tea, come along for the ride. Otherwise, feel free to skip to the timestamp below. But we're going to do our best to go over the story without
messing up.
Well, yes, always. But I was going to say without giving too many details, because we don't need to sit and go over every single minute detail. So if we've skipped over something, it's either intentional or we just screwed up. Either way, you wouldn't know a difference.
Just guess.
So, first off, you play as Tidus. Tidus is this famous Blitzball player in this huge city of Zanarkand. It's kind of like a futuristic New York, I'd say. kind of like
It's like its
world.
own thing.
Yeah,
but
it really is its own like architecture,
it's a very
but
futuristic, very heavily like neon lights, full, just
yeah,
just it is kind of futuristic, but like in its own realm.
own like its own thing. It's not like what we establish as futuristic, like robots and stuff, but it's more of like it's almost like an Atlantis futuristic concept.
Kinda, yeah.
In any case, Titus is heading to a very special Blitzball tournament commemorating his father, who not recently, he disappeared 10 years ago, and this is like his 10-year disappearance anniversary, maybe, something like that. And the announcers kind of go over that as you're walking through the crowds. But after pushing through the crowds, Titus makes his way to the stadium, and while he's playing, this huge monster emerges from the ocean on the outskirts of town and begins firing these energy balls at the city. Titus falls out of the water and falls off of the stadium, but then runs into Oren, who is kind of been his like mentor and caretaker for the past 10 years since his father left. He runs into Oren and helps Titus get through the city. Titus and Oren get sucked into this monster, and Titus washes up on shore in the middle of these ruins, kind of in the middle of the ocean. He gets trapped inside the ruins while exploring and run into a group of people that speak a different language. He doesn't really understand what they're talking. He ends up getting knocked out, and he wakes up on board their ship and is able to talk to one of the people on board, whose name is Riku. She's very confused about his backstory with Zanarkand and explains that Zanarkand was destroyed 1,000 years prior. She kind of talks about sin a little bit and how sin can give toxins if you get too close and make your brain fuzzy and your memory fuzzy. But she gives him advice to not really talk about being from Zanarkand.
It's a holy place.
Yeah, well, it was more of a...
Well, that's what she says.
Oh,
it's
did
a
she?
holy
Oh,
place.
yeah, and then it's taboo to kind of talk about that thing, yeah. Riku offers to take him to Luca, hoping that he'll find someone that he knows.
That's where they play Blitzball, because he tells her.
Right, yeah, because of the Blitzball thing, exactly. So, she offers to take him to Luca and hope to help him get home, but Sin ends up attacking the ship, and Titus gets tossed overboard. If you don't know the history of Final Fantasy X, Sin is this like enormous whale monster that pops up and destroys things from time to time. Riku kind of explains this to Titus while he's on board the ship, but he's already experienced Sin once when he is like sucked up into him, and obviously Sin was the one firing energy balls upon the city, but also he's seeing it now on the boat. He ends up waking up on the beach where he gets hit in the head with a blitzball. And when he looks up, he sees Waka, who is this Blitzball team captain. Titus does this like super awesome move with the Blitzball, and
they're all like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, and the team really needs someone to join
to make them better.
Yeah,
so the tournament is coming up.
So Waka is the captain of a Blitzball team on the island that Titus woke up on in Besaid. And Waka needs help with his team. He explains to Waka that he got too close to Sin to try and explain away some of the inability to understand this basic stuff of the world. But Waka also offers to take Titus to Luca in exchange for Titus agreeing to join the Blitzball team. Waka takes Titus back to the Besaid village, where Waka take him to the temple to go greet the summoner. But Titus finds out that the summoner has been inside the temple for far too long and may be held up or in distress in some way. So Titus barges into the Cloister of Trials, which is this like holy area, and everyone is offended by this. He makes his way to the place before the prayer room. Oh no, he runs into Waka first. He explains the summoner's tradition as a whole. Basically, the summoners go on this pilgrimage across the world to help defeat Sin. collecting aeons as they go, which is they explain them as the faith that helps them summon the aeons. But he explains that summoners go on this pilgrimage and they're joined by guardians. And the only people allowed in the temple are the summoners and the guardians. Waka and Titus meet up with the other guardians inside the temple, Luca and Kamari.
Lulu.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Lulu and Kamari. Who did I say?
Luca.
Luca?
Luca?
Luca? Luca and Kamari, who are guardians to the summoner Yuna. And just as Titus shows up, Yuna comes stumbling out of the Chamber of Faith, and then they all go straight outside so that Yuna can summon the Aeon. And the Aeon are really just like the traditional Final Fantasy summons, more or less.
Yeah.
So she summons the one Valfor, and everyone's in awe, and Titus has never seen this before. That next day, because Titus is going on board the boat to go to Luca, and Yuna, with all the guardians, are going on this pilgrimage, they all are on the same boat. So it's Yuna, Lulu, Kamari, Waka, and Titus, who's, not really a guardian yet. You also find out at some point that Waka's also a guardian. So Lulu, Kimari, and Waka are all guardians for Yuna.
This is Waka's last tournament because he's quitting Blitz after this.
Right, yeah. And he does kind of talk about that a little bit. They all board the boat and they start heading towards Luca, but first they have to stop in Kilika because Yuna has to collect the Aeon in the Kilika temple. On their way to Kilika, they run into Sin again, and because they want to avoid Sin going into Kilika, they fire harpoons at Sin. It doesn't really help. They end up fighting Sin a little bit, but Sin breaks loose and charges Kilika full force, destroying the little village and killing most of the people in the town. The boat does end up docking in Kilika. Yuna offers to do a sending ritual for all of the dead, which is something that they do. It's part of the lore of the entire world. So people die and they become fireflies. And if their spirit stuck in the world and doesn't want to give up hope.
If it's not ready to accept death, it won't go to what they call the far plane,
right?
And it will stay with that bitterness, and it'll turn into a fiend.
It'll manifest itself into a physical monster.
The summoner's job is to make sure that they get what is called. Well, they use the sending, which is sending those fireflies to the far plane where they can get rest,
and that helps. Especially with a tragedy like this, where the whole village is wiped out, that helps the townspeople to not have as many fiends, but also they know that their loved ones have been,
they're in a good place.
They're sent to where they need to be, right?
They make their way to the next temple, right?
Yeah, they go to Kilika Temple. They end up fighting a Sin spawn while they're there, which is basically like a piece of Sin that breaks off and attacks people. Yuna gets Ifrit, and Titus actually ends up forced into the temple by Donna, who's this
another summoner,
competing summoner. Yeah. You don't really see a whole lot of her, and I don't mention her again in the story, but it was worth it just because Titus is forced into the temple yet again, kind of showing that he doesn't really care about their traditions, which is very...
it's forbidden.
Yeah. But in this case, Titus was forced. Yuna still ends up getting Ifrit, and they make their way back to the boat and heads towards Luca. When they dock at Luca, they see all of the other Blitzball Tournament players docking, as well as Maester Micah and Maester Seymour. Maester Micah is the Grand Maester of all of Yevon, which is their religion / government of Spira, which is the world that they live in. And Maester Micah, he's celebrating his 50th year as Grand Maester of Yevon. basically like the 50th anniversary of him being president of the world, essentially.
There's a lot of people here on this day.
Right, yeah, this is a big, it's a tournament. Like there's people from all over the world. It's a big deal to these people. And really Blitzball as a whole is a big deal to these people because it's their only form of entertainment. For the most part, they don't have Blitzball stadiums all over the world. They just have Luca. As Waka and the team are going in to do their tournament, Yuna ends up going missing, and Titus decides to go and hunt for her, which makes him miss the first game of the tournament with Waka, so Waka has to do it by himself. Titus finds Yuna and saves her from the Albed. Yuna's safe, and Taita goes back to do the second game, but Waka's too injured to be able to play. Although, halfway through, the crowd, entices him to come out, and he does play the second half of the second game to try and win the tournament. And you can win the tournament if you try hard enough, and if you're really lucky. Of course not. Did you?
I was really close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't get a single goal. And honestly, the Blitzball thing is just a mess. We'll talk more about it later, but if you win this first Blitzball game, you're really, really lucky. But anyway, at the end of the game, monsters start spawning in the stadium, and that's when Oren shows up and helps fight some of the monsters. Seymour summons his Aeon that goes around and kills all the little monsters that are remaining. The little. I mean, they're little monsters. Oren offers to join Yuna as a guardian.
It's important because when you first meet Yuna, they explain that Yuna's father actually defeated Sin at one point. And Sin always comes back in the end. But because he had defeated Sin, she now is following in his footsteps. And Oren was one of her father's guardians.
Defeating Sin is a big deal to these people because obviously they get some peace between Sin's death. And during that time, summoners are pilgrimaging to collect all these Aeons so that they can fight Sin to bring the calm, is what they call it. The period after Sin dies before he comes back. And the last time the calm came, it was Yuna's father. And when you bring, as a summoner, when you bring the calm, you instantly become legendary status. You get statues erected in your name. You get, all of your guardians are treated like royalty. And that's kind of the situation with Oren. He is like a legendary guardian because they fought Sin and won. And Oren's left to tell the tale, and he's roaming the countryside once again after a brief period of 10 years that he was with Titus.
And in between all of this, the more they talk about it, they kind of start feeling like they both Titus and Yuna know a Jet, which is Titus's dad, but that was also Braska's other guardian that was accompanying. So they're starting to connect the dots that maybe this is the same Jet that both of them know.
Yeah, and I think that's established pretty early.
Yeah.
I mean, Titus's father, having disappeared 10 years prior to the story,
it lines up with the timeline of when they met Jet.
Exactly.
For the first time.
And it lines up with the time frame of Sin being defeated last. Yep. And, so all these things kind of add up and they line up just right. So, Titus kind of figures that he was on that Jet, his dad, was on the pilgrimage with Yuna's father and Oren 10 years prior. Continuing on, Oren offers to be Yuna's guardian, but the only stipulation was that Titus joins as well. So Yuna now has a lot of guardians. She's got Oren and Titus, and then Lulu and Waka and Kamari. The group now needs to continue their pilgrimage towards Jose Temple. While they're heading that way, they pass by Mushroom Rock, and the group encounters Crusaders that are heading down towards the beach with a bunch of Albed. Now, we haven't talked about Albed a whole lot yet. The Albed are the weird language-talking people that
Titus encountered at the beginning. They're kind of working together, which
is abnormal in this situation because the Albed are
They're considered not allies to Yevon because they use what is considered forbidden, which is the Machina.
Right. And Machina is kind of like an energy source. And
basically
it's
machinery.
Right.
Right.
And it's forbidden within the Yevon government.
Yes.
But because this group of people use it, they're like outcast and actually hunted down almost to extinction. So they're definitely repressed people. And so this is really an oddity to see the Crusaders who are fighting sin in Yevon's name, and the Al-Bhed fighting sin because it's the right thing to do, working together. Seymour shows up, and he really is just there to bear witness to what's going on, and he allows this collaboration, which is, again, a weird situation. The whole concept is that they are gathering, the Al-Bhed and the Crusaders are all gathering sin spawn from around the world to try to attract sin to this location in an attempt to kill sin, like force an assault upon sin to try and kill him once and for all. However, the attack fails and the majority of the fighters die in the conflict. Yuna does perform ascending, but Seymour just kind of leaves. Seymour, you kind of get this, like,
he's not following the rules exactly.
Yeah, but he also has a flirtatious side to him towards Yuna, where he's favoring her a little bit.
There's definitely an interest.
And she sees him as this maester to be,
this is a person
revered,
of higher,
right?
Power.
After the conflict, Seymour just kind of takes off, and the group heads towards the Doge Temple. They acquire Ixion, and the group hears about summoners going missing while on their pilgrimage.
Yeah, it's just kind of like little rumors here and there.
Right. They head towards the Moonflow, which is kind of like this big lake of fireflies heading towards the far plane. And the only way to cross this lake is by Shoepuff, which is a huge, like, elephant.
The best name for a monster ever.
Want to ride the Shoepuff?
Shoepuffs.
While they're riding the Shoepuff, the Al-Bhed uses a machine and captures Yuna. Titus and Waka jump in.
Off, yeah,
because they're, like, in the lake. So they jump off, destroy the machine, and bring Yuna back to the surface. When they finally make it to the other side of the lake, they run into Riku, who was the person who helped Titus at the very beginning. Yeah. Titus recognizes Riku. She tells Titus that she was the one who was in that machine. Yeah. She goes over and talks to Yuna, and Yuna just immediately allows her to become a guardian. It's not really explained until much later, but the reality is that Riku is Yuna's cousin, and because of that simple fact alone, Riku's allowed in the group. And Oren, for whatever reason, allows it, even though Oren knows that she's part of the Al-Bhed group.
Everyone seems to know except Waka.
Yeah, and Waka is just left in the dark. And the reason is because Waka is really...
he's a very faithful to the Yevon teachings.
That's way better, way nicer than what I was gonna. I was gonna say that he's racist.
Well,
like he's just flat out horrible towards the Al-Bhed.
There is an actual discrimination, but it's more from the standpoint of those people he's very faithful to the Yevon teachings, and he knows that, and he even had a problem during the Crusaders and the Al-Bhed forming together because it was against teachings.
Right.
And that was the whole problem he had with it from the beginning. So yes, they kind of hold Riku's lineage and Yuna's from him.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. The party continues on to Guado Salam, and as soon as they reach the area, Yuna's asked to meet with Seymour in his mansion.
He gets around very quickly.
He does, yeah. He just
he has to be flying, and I don't know how he could possibly be flying in those clothes.
I know. Well, maybe that's all it is. He's like a kite.
Yes.
It's the hair. The group goes to Seymour's mansion, and Seymour shows them this sphere, which is like a movie memory.
They utilize the Pyreflies.
Yep.
Shows them Xanarkin, doesn't it?
Yes.
What they say it's supposed to look like before Sin showed up.
Yeah, it shows Xanarkin, and it also kind of goes over Lady Yunaleska and her husband, Lord Xeon, who was the first summoner to defeat Sin 1,000 years ago. So the way that they're explaining it is that 1,000 years prior to Spira, the world that Yuna grew up in, Sin came and destroyed Xanarkin. And Lady Yunaleska showed up and used her summoning abilities to call an Aeon to destroy Sin. But ever since then, Sin has continued to come back.
They get the calm, but it still is regenerating.
It comes back every time. So after showing this sphere to the group, Seymour proposes marriage to Yuna. She doesn't really answer right away. Instead, she wants to visit the Far Plane to kind of think about it. The Far Plane is this place where all the Fireflies go, and it's a physical location within Guado Salam, who the Guado people are the protectors of the Far Plane. You're allowed entry, but really only Titus, Yuna, and
Lulu.
Waka.
Lulu too.
Oh, Lulu goes in too? They're the only ones who actually go in.
Riku and Oren stay behind. Riku says...
I don't think Kamari goes in either, does he?
No, I think he
maybe he does to just watch over
Oren
Yuna.
Doesn't really give a reason, but Riku, she kind of explains that some people think that it's really the people that they're seeing, and some people think that the Fireflies are just showing a memory and not actually
they're reacting to your memories of...
And her excuse is, well, I don't want to... It's just a memory. That's
also... It's a sacred place to those people, and I think that she's Al Bhed. She doesn't really care, but she's respecting that sacred, vibe of the place. While Yuna's in there, she sees her parents. While Waka's there, he sees his brother, Chapu, yeah, who supposedly looks a lot like Titus, though he doesn't at all.
Absolutely not.
Titus goes in and expects to see his dad, however, instead he sees his mom. This kind of makes you think that his dad is still alive, that Jet is still out there somewhere. On their way out, they run into Lord Jiskel, the Guado, who's actually Seymour's dad.
He was well known, by this point you know that he had passed away.
Recently.
Because Seymour took over his father's position after he died.
Right, his father's position as Maester.
And he's now trying to break through from the Far Plane. They explain that when that happens, it's usually because they died an unclean death.
Yeah.
And in this case, he drops a sphere, which kind of talks about how... He explains in the sphere, because it's just a recording of himself.
But he does drop the sphere, and Yuna snatches it off the ground before anyone else really sees that he had dropped it. They head back to Seymour's mansion to tell Seymour about his dad showing up, but Seymour had already left for Macalania. So the group kind of heads towards Macalania. In the meantime, they're passing through the Thunder Plains. Riku's really afraid of thunder she got struck by lightning while she was in the swimming pool or whatever. While they're stopped for a rest period, Taida walks in and catches Yuna watching that sphere. She doesn't explain anything, but before they leave the Thunder Plains, Yuna pulls everyone aside and declares that she's accepting Seymour's wedding marriage proposal. They head towards the Macalania Woods, and Oren finds a spot where he had stopped 10 years ago on their last pilgrimage.
Kind of cuts down that area.
Yeah, right.
Through.
Titus finds a video sphere left behind from Jet that shows snippets of their adventure while they were out, on their pilgrimage, but also there's a little snip of Jet trying to leave him a message of it's saying I love you, but not in so many words. Just like, hey, how's it going? I hope you're not a crybaby anymore. I don't know, that kind of stuff.
Usual dad stuff.
And I guess also this is the point in time for Jet that he is coming to terms with the fact that he's not going back to his Xanarkin, that he's stuck in Spira and he's not going to be able to go back.
Because it starts out that he was wanting to take snippets to show his kid and wife, And then you kind of see him talking as these clips go on of him saying goodbye almost.
Yeah, that's
just
very true.
talking about
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, when you first see the snippets, he's like, "Hey, I want to take video to show my kids when I get back," and then towards the end, it's more of a, "Hey, I'm not coming back." After they move on a little bit, Yuna is met by one of Seymour's Guado people, and they try to escort her to the Macalania temple. However, an Albed ambushes them, essentially trying to stop their pilgrimage. It turns out that this person is Riku's brother, and
her brother.
What?
His name's brother.
Oh yeah, that's true. His name is brother. Her brother. This fact and the way that they interact leads Waka to realize that Riku is an Albed.
They're yelling at her, and she's yelling back in Albed.
Right.
He's like, "Why do you know how to speak that language?"
Right. So now Waka's all butthurt because they've been traveling with this Albed this whole time, and, you know, he really is upset. The group do end up going to the temple. They're trying to find Yuna because the Guado had already rushed Yuna to the temple. But when they get there, they realize that Yuna has already gone inside the temple with Seymour. But while they're waiting for Yuna, one of the people in the temple run out saying that they had found
something in Yuna's possession.
Right, yeah.
Why were they going through her things?
I don't know, maybe she left it on the table. So they find this Jeskull sphere, which really tells it's a video recollection of Jeskull, again, Seymour's dad, that Seymour had killed him, and really just warning whoever's watching the video that Seymour has a darkness and it could really destroy the world with this darkness to stop him at all costs. So because of this, the party runs in to find Yuna and confront Seymour. They ultimately end up killing Seymour. Now, this is not a very good thing to the Guado people. They carry Seymour's body out before Yuna can do her sending, and the soldiers start chasing the party out of the temple. While trying to flee, the party fall into a broken section of the Lake Macalania, which is this like huge frozen lake. They fall inside a broken section, which is hollow for whatever reason. Yuna is able to tell the party that she was really just trying to get Seymour to turn himself in from this horrible thing that he has done by agreeing to marry him. As they start exploring their surroundings under the lake, they kind of realize that they're on top of Sin, who is attracted to the Hymn of the Faith. Now, the Hymn of the Faith is a temple song that is sung by all of Sphera, not even just the Yevon people, but like even the Albed sing it for whatever reason. But when the song stops, Sin starts to move, and the party falls unconscious, waking up a desert.
Naturally, you fall into a lake and wake up in the desert.
I don't really understand what happened at this moment in time. I always kind of thought that Sin was nearby and somehow they knew, and then an earthquake happened, and this earthquake caused them to fall into the water and get washed up ashore. I don't know.
I think that's what happened, because it makes sense, because you wake up in the desert, but you're on a beach.
Right.
And you did fall into the frozen lake, so it's strange.
You wake up controlling only Titus at the edge of a desert, and you're able to hunt down the rest of the party members in an effort to try and find Yuna, who's missing. Riku tells the group that Yuna's probably been sent to the Albed home that is in the desert, and she agrees to take the party to their home, but their home is this very exclusive place where no one's supposed to know about it except the Albed. It's really a sanctuary for the Albed because the Yevon group has been destroying the Albed, smaller groups. So
in fact, she even says you can't tell Yevon where we are.
Right. However, as they show up, they realize that the home is under attack by the Guado.
They make their way inside. You actually see one of the Albed fall, and that's where you meet Riku's dad at first.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you realize that Riku's dad is kind of the leader of the Albed people as a whole, really, the Albed people. And Riku's dad's name is Sid, which is kind of fun because it's another Sid in another Final Fantasy game.
You end up making your way through there, and you end up finding the Summoner's Sanctum, and you kind of put together that, all those rumors of them kidnapping the Summoners, that's where they've been taking them, because you actually run into Donna and Isaru in there.
Right. And I think they even talk about that they've been treated really well by the Albed people.
Well, they end up performing Ascending.
That's right.
Them.
Yep. The Albed kidnapping the Summoners isn't a place of hostility as much as it is that the Albed people truly believe that the Summoner's quest is pointless because Sin just keeps coming back.
You can kind of tell while you're going along as Titus that there isn't something being said when he talks about the end of the pilgrimage. And that's when kind of Titus learns that at the end of the Summoner's Pilgrimage, when you call the final Aeon, that it actually kills the Summoner. And he had no idea about this. So he's sitting there having this meltdown going, I said all these things to Yuna about where we were going to go after this.
I strongly agree with him. Because the whole time... Now, I knew this fact going into the game. And when you're watching this game unfold and Titus is talking about, taking Yuna to Xanarkand or, hey, don't worry about doing this. We'll do it when we're done with the pilgrimage.
No one said
there's
anything.
There is no reason that Titus should not have been told this at some point. And every opportunity that there's been for them to say something, they just sit there like idiots.
The perfect time that they could have mentioned this was at Kilika at the very beginning, where all those people, it was already a terrible time. That would have been the perfect time because he wasn't initially even going with them on the pilgrimage.
Right, yeah.
That would have been the best time, but they're like, it was too hard. But when everyone was dying at Kilika, at that point, that wasn't hard.
Right, yeah, and you're right. That's what their whole explanation was this whole time, that, it's just too hard to put into words. What's funny about that is, as soon as this has been told, everyone now is talking about it.
I get it.
If it's this taboo thing to talk about, let's not talk about it anymore. But now, the game's like, well, you need to know why.
Yeah. It was an interesting plot. But
it is,
but still, it is a little no, I would have wanted to have known.
Right. Well, and
that's what Titus really is.
Yeah,
saying.
Exactly. And that's kind of the whole problematic part of this whole thing, is that Yuna is going through this and sacrificing herself to just have Sin die for a short time,
right,
and have him come back again. And the cycle starts over again. Sin shows up, attacks and attacks and attacks. A summoner comes, sacrifices their life to kill Sin for a short amount of time, and it's just a never-ending spiral of death. And they talk about that a few times in the game. Getting back to the story and Titus doesn't have much of a choice. They just move on to this secluded area in Home, which turns out to be an airship.
They're boarding all of the survivors basically onto this, which ends up being the airship that, well, we didn't really talk about it at the beginning, but at the very beginning, Titus actually helps salvage an old airship in the sea. Do you remember that?
I didn't catch that.
You didn't catch that? Mm-mm. They talk about it when during this moment. They explain that this is the ship that they salvaged, and they've restored it, and all of the remaining survivors board this airship, and they leave home. And they actually they mention that they're using the Forbidden Machina, and they actually blow up.
Oh yeah, okay. So in the meantime, Yuna has been captured by the Guado people
because she wasn't
at the home area. So the Guado must have captured her while this all was going down. So Yuna's not on the airship with the rest of the party. they catch word that Yuna is at Bavel. And so the party flies to Bavel and sees that Yuna and Seymour are
in the middle of the ceremony.
In the middle of their wedding ceremony.
Put together this wedding very quickly.
Very quickly. They were already ready. Seymour was like, I'm getting married. The airship flies towards Bavel, and the party jumps off the airship and makes their way to really save Yuna.
Yeah.
Where Yuna pulls out her staff from nowhere and
no one noticed.
And tries to send Seymour.
So when they get up there, they pull out like guns and stuff, which again is forbidden, I believe.
Oh right, yeah,
and
okay.
They tell Grandmaster Micah's there actually, and he tells Yuna to stop sending her. And that basically that they would either kill her guardians if she didn't go through with the ceremony. So she drops her staff and she ends up continuing the ceremony, which she ends up officially married to Seymour.
With a very awkward kiss.
Yes. And then after that happens, immediately Seymour's just like, kill them.
Oh, right.
And so, they're all being kind of roughed up, and so Yuna actually
threatens to jump off Bavel is like this tall tower, and she goes to the balcony of the tower and threatens to jump off if the party wasn't released. So the party's released, and Yuna jumps off the balcony, but is rescued by Valfor that she summons while she's falling.
Very cool cutscene.
It is probably one of the coolest ones in the whole game. The party assumes Yuna's heading towards the Cloister Trials, so they try to meet her down there. While they're there, they're realizing that the temple has been using all kinds of forms of machina, and this is something that Wakka's having a hard time with.
When you first kill Seymour, he is having a hard time because this is absolutely forbidden. He's saying, I can't believe I'm a part of this. I can't believe I'm a heathen.
Yeah. And
the more that this, stuff is happening, he's seeing all this machina, and he's having, as a believer, a hardcore believer, this is... it's sacrilegious and all these teachings, and here they are using machina in the main temple.
Yeah.
So you kind of go through the Cloister Trials, which is a terrible trial.
That one was terrible, yeah.
And Yuna actually attains Bahamut, but pretty much as soon as you get Bahamut, you're immediately under arrest.
Yep. Thrown in jail.
And actually Yuna's put on trial, and this is where she's trying to explain that Mr. Seymour he's an unsent.
He's dead, yeah, and that's against the law.
To send him, and that's where Grandmaster Micah is like, well, if you're gonna send him, you're gonna have to send me as well, and you kind of see that he's all pyrofly. He's on fire. And so you kind of learn that really all of them, with the exception of Kelk Ronso, that they're all kind of in on this, like, lie, basically. Yeah. And Yuna tells them about Lord Jiskel, because she says he was murdered. Seymour had murdered him. And you hear Kelk Ronso going, like, he also has a hard time with
is this true?
Yes. Yeah. And he actually leaves. The rest of the Maesters, they deem the party as traitors, and they sentence them to the Via Purifico.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really just this, like...
It's like an unescapable labyrinth. It has an exit, but it's such a labyrinth that it's deemed as unescapable.
They're like, there's a small chance they might survive, but the odds are so slim.
I don't understand, why didn't they just kill them right then and there? Like, they were like, we're gonna send them there, they're gonna die, but just in case they don't die, send someone there to make sure they die. Why didn't you just kill them right then and there? Oh, but I think part of the reason why, though, was because Seymour still wanted Yuna.
That's true, yeah.
And his point was, if he married Yuna...
And wasn't he sent... Didn't he go to...
He went to get her, I believe.
I think he went to go kill her.
Well...
I think Micah was forcing him to go kill her.
Micah wanted him to kill her, and he didn't want to initially, but Keenock, one of the other side guys who really had no importance,
right,
he was going to make sure that she died, and in the middle of all this, Seymour actually kills him.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But anyway, you go to the Via Purifico, and you're actually controlling Yuna just by herself, and you need to quickly find your guardians because just Yuna by herself is very difficult in this dungeon. But you managed to find all your guardians, and you actually run into one of the older summoners that you run into, Isaru.
Who's been sent to stop.
He's been sent to stop the party because he's still siding with Yevon, but the party pretty much takes care of him.
I also want to mention during all this, during the trial, part of the pilgrimage and the point of doing the pilgrimage is this possibility that they've been fed.
This might be the last time that we have defeated Sin.
Maybe this time Sin will be gone forever. But
they're starting to realize.
Well, no, outright, Maester Micah says there is no way to kill Sin. Like, yeah, you've been doing this for no reason for all these years, and it's really shaking Yuna's faith in the whole process. But still wanting to give people that calm, wanting to be that person for these people is important to her, and it's really important for the whole party.
Right. So you end up defeating Isaru, and you confront Seymour again, who actually walks up with Kinok, who is dead at this point.
That's right.
But he kind of is telling Yuna that he wants to save Spira by becoming Sin and destroying all life, which you're starting to see how he's actually crazy.
I kind of feel like this is a common Final Fantasy.
The crazy guy finally shows his crazy cards.
Well, no, it's more of this, like, we're gonna save everyone by killing them all. Like, that's a very common Final Fantasy thing to... Well, really, it's kind of a common supervillain thought process of, well, no, I'm helping you by killing everyone, or I'm saving the world by eliminating the biggest threat, which is everyone, you know, and it's kind of a common thing.
So your party fights Seymour again. He transforms into this, like, Seymour
monster.
Natus. He takes on a completely different form. But you beat him, and your party flees Bavel into the Macalania woods, where they're like, we can't go back to Bavel right now. It's not safe. They're basically on their own.
Yeah, they really take time to try and figure out what they want to do. They have this moment of, do we continue the pilgrimage or not?
They stop to regroup, and Yuna needs time alone. And they're all kind of processing what has just happened, basically.
Right. And Titus really hasn't had a chance to talk to Yuna after realizing that she is doing all this knowing that she's going to die at the end. So he gets this opportunity to talk to her and apologize for all the things that he had been saying before that. She just tries to soothe him by telling him that
maybe I will.
Right. Well, and they have this moment of, just playing that what if for a while and entertaining the dream of not continuing the pilgrimage or not dying afterwards. And, Yuna will live and they'll go to Xanarkand, this big fanciful dream, but in the end they know that
they have to keep going.
They have to, yeah.
And then they share a special moment under the water.
It's true.
One of the best songs in the movie, though. That scene when he's comforting her, I mean.
Oh, the Sudekinane. Yeah, that song is really good. It's a trope of the Final Fantasy X soundtrack.
So you pretty much decide that no, despite all of this, we're going to continue on. We're going to go defeat Sin. And I think Titus and even Riku are like, we'll just try and think of a way to not... We'll just think of a way.
We'll just try and figure it out on the way. Like, let's go ahead and entertain the idea of continuing on, but we're gonna figure this out.
So the woods that they're in leads to the Calmlands, which is where past. I don't know if it's past and present, where they used to fight Sin.
It is the area that they go to fight Sin. It's the casting grounds of the final Aeon. So their pilgrimage leads them to Xanarkand, where they're granted the final Aeon, and then they go to the Calm Lands to summon the final Aeon and fight Sin in this wide open area where no one really lives.
Pretty much not a whole lot.
There's not a whole lot story-wise.
It's mostly just explaining what the Calmlands is, and you kind of make your way out of there and towards Mount Gagazet. Your party ends up going up in there. Well, this is a sacred place where the Ronso people live, who happens to be what Kimahri is.
And they're the guardians of the mountain. But
she's been branded as a traitor, so at first they don't let her pass, but she's explains basically that yes, they've marked me as a traitor, but I still need to defeat Sin. It's very important, and I guess the Kelk Ronso, the guy who left Bavel, he is moved by her strength by wanting to continue this no matter what, and they actually give her the blessing of the mountain or whatever, and very touching.
And as they pass through the mountain, they run into Seymour yet again. And this time, Seymour is angry.
He kills all the Ronsos on the way up. So
that's what they say. I don't know. Like, if you go back down to the bottom, there's still some there.
I went back down because I had to backtrack.
Yeah, I was going to talk to him too, and
there really was not very many at all. But after a certain amount of dialogue has passed, when you have the airship, there are more Ronso. But it makes sense because there are other Ronso throughout the Spira anyway, so not all of them were dead, but I believe he killed most of them.
Sure, yeah.
You approach this area where you see Seymour standing, and he's just like, ho, they fought valiantly, and Kimahri's upset about this, and he goes, well, I've ended their suffering because they're dead. And they kind of are just like, you've gone too far, you're crazy, and they end up fighting him again.
Right. They fight Seymour.
They assume at this time he's gone.
They really do. And I think Yuna performs the sending, doesn't she? Or she tries to.
I think so, but he kind of falls off the cliff.
Yeah, right.
And and stay dead is like what someone says.
As they're leaving, Oren says something to Titus about Jet. It's revealed that Jet is Sin.
Which you kind of already knew.
Yeah, they were dropping hints, and I think Titus was told this earlier in the story, but Yuna's finding this out for the first time. And, with Jet being such a major inspiration for her and her pilgrimage, and really the biggest reason why Titus is even on the pilgrimage with her is Jet, and she looks up to him. Now, Titus, on the other hand, sees Jet as a terrible father, and so them wanting to go to fight and stop Sin is really Titus's way of going to confront his father throughout this whole thing. And so Yuna's seeing that and is upset to know that they have to go and fight Sin, which is Jet.
Right.
They don't really understand the concept of it yet, but it is part of what's going on. So they make their way to Xanarkand.
You walk by the wall.
In every city and in every temple, there is
a faith.
The faith room. And the faith is preyed upon to become Aeons. The Aeons are essentially fireflies that the faith have condensed into monsters to be controlled by the summoner. And when they show up at Xanarkand, they're seeing this wall of faith, and it's all summoning something. They don't really know what, but they see that it's all active, and
Yuna even says this is a summoning that is happening.
Yeah, I wonder what they're summoning. Is what she says.
And Titus touches it,
and he goes into like a dream mode, a dream world, where he's confronted by a little kid who we've seen a few times before, but he's like a little ghost kid who's
just made appearances. Yeah. Somehow, which, by the way, his faith looks nothing like this little kid, so I don't understand why he's a little kid.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he explains to Titus, basically, that long ago, before Xanarkand was destroyed, well, actually, when it was destroyed, the remaining survivors got together to do this summoning, which is what preserved the memory, which is what Titus was, of their Xanarkand.
Yeah, and he goes into deeper lore yet, where he talks about Yevon and Xanarkand going to war.
Well, it was Bavel.
Was it Bavel?
It was Bavel and Xanarkand.
Oh yeah, you're right, because it was
were
before
at war.
Yevon.
And I don't know if it's him that explains this or if it's one of the like lore people walking around, but they explain that Bavel destroys Xanarkand and try to just eradicate everything about Xanarkand. They forbid the Machina and just they are now the world government.
And with this all coming down upon the people of Xanarkand, the people who are left sacrifice themselves to become faith to preserve the memory of Xanarkand as a whole. And by this preservation, all the people of Xanarkand are in this dream state, and they're dreaming of the Xanarkand that Titus came from. And all of their dreaming and all of their summoning is what made Titus
and Jet,
right? And Titus's universe. And
he tells pretty well.
Well, yeah, he does, but he's really told that the Faith are tired. They've been summoning for 1,000 years. They've been dreaming for 1,000 years. This eternal rest, but not really. And they're tired, and they want to just be done. He's told that if they stop dreaming, Titus is going to disappear. That's explicitly told. So essentially, when sin ends, Titus will disappear with them, because when sin stops, the dream state stops, and the dream state is what makes Titus functioning. Essentially, Titus is an Aeon, right? Like Titus is formed by fireflies to be summoned by faith to be able to transcend his Xanarkand world to be in the physical. Because he's not the same as the dead ghost people.
It's not explained, but at the end of the game, you actually see little bubbles of memories, and we know it's explained in the game that fireflies are, if you condense them enough, they show memories. And I assumed that he is a functioning memory of their dream that's being made. I don't know for sure. It's not explained.
I just...
At least not in the game.
My theory was that he essentially is an Aeon, and that the people, the faith that are doing this dream of Xanarkand is pulling very specific key people out to try to stop the dream. To try and stop the endless spiral of death. In any case, Titus is told that he really is a dream, state. He is part of their dream, but that his goal is to stop the dream, is to stop,
bring rest to the faith and end the sin, end everything.
Right.
Finish this.
So he wakes back up, and he doesn't really say anything to anyone. They just continue on to Xanarkand.
I'm sorry, but he's doing them dirty like they did to him.
Well, in some way, it's like, they get what they get coming, Anyway, the party goes on to Xanarkand, the actual ruins of the city. They have a final moment where they know that Yuna is going to summon the final Aeon. She's going to acquire the final Aeon. That's where they're heading to next. Titus finds a sphere from Yuna where she's saying her goodbyes, and she kind of goes from each person describing how she met Kimari, and how Waka and Lulu are like her big brother and sister. And really just
saying goodbye.
Yeah. Like, she knows that she's going into this and that she's not coming back. She has a moment for Titus too, where she just says, I wasn't expecting to feel this way for anyone. Yeah. And it's wonderful and it's terrible at the same time. And, just basically saying, I love you and I wasn't expecting to fall in love, but here we are. I have duties to, to move on.
She's kind of interrupted before she can really finish.
Yeah, that's true.
But basically, yes, he finds that. And he doesn't say anything and he keeps it.
I know.
Like, she didn't think at one point, like, where's my spear? Who found my spear? And it's like finding someone's diary.
Well, it's like, where was she keeping it for one? Right. Probably in the same spot where she was keeping her staff, wherever that was. So,
well, and
what did she just have? Like,
she also had someone else find the Lord Jiskel sphere. So, like, she's obviously not very good at keeping care of her things.
That's true. That's very true. So the party push on towards the Xanarkin temple, where they enter and they do the final Cloister of Trials, which is kind of like playing Tetris. You are greeted by Lady Yunaleska as the final faith, essentially. Yeah. If you recall, Lady Yunaleska is the first summoner, and
1,000 years ago.
So
she's clearly dead.
Yes, very much so. And she explains to the party that Yuna is sacrificed, but also has to take a guardian with her to become the final Aeon. That the final Aeon has to be a sacrificed guardian. And for her, it was her loved one, Lord Zayon, or whatever.
Her husband.
Her husband, right. And, that they did that sacrifice as a group, and this is how you find out that sin
is eternal.
Well, yeah, and you find out that the final Aeon for Braska's pilgrimage was Jet, because,
she turned him into a faith, which is how, Braska performs the final Aeon, which kills him. And does she explain what happens with...
I don't know, but we may as well go into it.
So, you end up learning that Sin is actually Yevon.
I think you get very small tidbits of it. But yeah.
He is the person who wanted to become eternal, right? He is eternal.
I don't think that was the original plan. I think the concept was because he was created the same time that 1,000 years ago, and he essentially is the caretaker of the Xanarkin dream. That all those faiths were doing, like, essentially. He is the core of that. But he also has to protect himself. So when you create the final summoning and you create the final Aeon, the Aeon destroys Sin, which is the outer shell of Yevon, and Yevon possesses the final Aeon, and that final Aeon eventually turns into the new Sin. And Yevon is able to jump from Aeon to Aeon in an attempt to continuously make Sin. And that's his goal. It's become a point where now he's no longer really human or anything. He just is. He just is doing the thing that happens, So yeah, they're finding out that the final summoning takes both the sacrifice of the summoner and the sacrifice of a guardian, and none of them want to have any part of this.
Right.
Oren's fed up with it because Oren lost both of his best friends in the last pilgrimage, and Yuna not only has to lose her life, but someone else has to be sacrificed along with her, and the whole party is just fed up with the entire cycle. The entirety of it just needs to fall.
Well, and they're finding that it is a false hope.
Yeah, it really is.
There's, they've lied to everyone of Spira. There's no point to the constant bloodshed, and they need to do something else.
So what ends up happening is they kill Lady Yunaleska.
Lady Yunaleska confronts them. They don't want to just kill her.
Yeah, that's true. They were just gonna walk away, and she's like, "We can't have
I'm just gonna end your." Well, for one thing, she can't have them going and explaining it to other people, and to her, I'm going to end your sorrow, you poor creatures, what have you. So she intends to just eliminate them then and there.
Yep.
So you kill Lady Yunaleska.
You do also find out that Oren confronted Lady Yunaleska once prior. And you
see this happen because they explain that the inside of these ruins is basically a big sphere.
Yeah.
Because there's such a concentrated amount of pyreflies, and you do throughout this, you see different memories of different summoners who actually had brought the calm of what they were doing, and you see a little bit of Braska and Oren and Jet
and even older ones that you don't really know, like they just show up.
You see Seymour and his mother.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So you see that Oren at one point had confronted Lady Yunaleska, and this is where Titus finds out that Oren is also an unsent. Yes. Oren's like, I'm not ready to go just yet, but I want to see this through to the end.
He also explains that Jet asked him to go back and take care of his kid.
He had unfinished business.
And he had unfinished business. He had to make sure that Titus was taken care of, and that, that this needs to be put to an end, because he ends up being sent back into Xanarkand where Jet was. I didn't catch this until to this playthrough, that Oren was actually there with Titus all 10 years, because throughout Spira, everyone's like, Oren, where have you been these 10 years?
Yeah, I know. I felt the same way. Like, it's funny because it's very obvious, because Oren talks about it like he's been there with Titus for the 10 years since his dad disappeared.
In 10 years, he didn't once say anything? I don't, that's the only part that I don't quite understand.
Maybe it was not something that they have been super close, but like, Titus had his mom for a little while. Yeah. And you find out that his mom ended up dying of a broken heart because she was heartbroken over Jet being gone. Jet was gone. And Titus hated his dad because of his mom dying. Like, his mom, him disappearing not only ruined Titus's life, it ruined his mom's life to the point where she died.
Right.
And now he is left with no one except Oren. And I think Oren wasn't like a father figure, but more of just I'm here if you need something, sort of like an uncle. Like, I'm here if you need something, but like I'm way over here just kind of watching you from afar throughout this whole thing. And I never really pieced all that together until this playthrough, but there's a lot of stuff in this playthrough that I didn't piece together until just now, so I don't know. So Lady Yunaleska's dead. How did they get on the airship? They walk outside
and Sin is outside looking at your party, and the airship flies by while Sin leaves, and you board the airship that Sid has recovered, and your team kind of talks about what to do next. In fact, they decide to go back to Bavel to confront Maester Micah again.
They really realize that they need more information more than anything. They have no idea. They have no idea what's next, because this has never happened before. So they go back to Bavel to talk to Micah, and when you talk to Micah, he is very upset.
You explain that you've basically killed Yunaleska, which she's the only one that can help you perform the final sending.
Right. She essentially gives you the final Aeon. So without the final Aeon, there is no destroying Sin. And this is so upsetting to him that he like sends himself. Like, he's just like, home. Nope.
Do you ever just want to send yourself? You're in the middle of a Walmart, be like, I'm done. I'm just going to send myself to the far plane.
There are days. But, I mean,
he disappears. In fact, he disappears, and one of the, like, temple ladies comes out and is like, where's Maester Micah? And everyone's just like, he never showed up. I don't know. It's just so like nonchalant. He's dead.
Yep. I think it's because it's easier to approach it that way than to be sent in jail for sending another Maester.
Well, and it gives them a chance to say that they've thought of they need something to, I don't know how they approach it, but they end up telling her, we need you to spread the word that the airship in the sky, because they talk about how Jet is so drawn to the hymn, and they explain the airship in the sky is going to sing the hymn, and we need everyone in Spira to sing this hymn. Oh, they talk about that on the airship, though.
Yeah, their concept is that they're going to draw Sin in and then attack him
head on.
Attack him without him being so aware.
Oh, yeah, they're making him docile.
Right.
Yes.
And that the hymn of the faith is the way to do that, as they saw when they were in the Macalania, or the...
Yeah, the underneath the water, the lake.
Yeah, right.
The frozen lake.
So they tell this temple lady to go across Spira, that we're going to fight Sin. Tell everyone you know to sing the hymn of the faith if you hear the...
They do it above Bavel. So it's really just the people in the area of Bavel, which makes sense why house.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because they specifically say all of Spira, but it is really just Bavel. But yeah, so everyone in the area is singing the hymn of the faith along with a recording on the airship, I think. So back on the airship, you go out on the deck and Sin shows up, and you charge Sin with the airship, and essentially you cripple him to some degree. You take off both of his fins, and you really are putting him in a critical state.
He's unable to really outwardly do anything because he doesn't really have... Well, he does do, like...
He has movements a little bit, but he's not as mobile as he was.
Your goal is to find an opening or make one.
Right,
just get inside.
Exactly. So Sid turns back around and you charge Sin again. And this time Sin is just like peeved, and you have a limited amount of time to knock him down before he does like a super move and kills you. So once you knock Sin down enough, you go into Sin and you confront Seymour, who's inside.
Of course.
And
well, you kind of figure, I don't know if it was explained specifically because I read it somewhere, but realistically, Sin absorbed Seymour, because Sin is absorbing Pyreflies around it, and it had absorbed Seymour inside him, which is...
I think that somehow... I think that was Seymour's intent anyway, was to go to Sin. Yeah, that's really what it was. He wanted to become Sin. He wanted to help end all the suffering, and the only way to do that is to destroy everything.
I think that's really what it was. He just wanted power. So you ended up fighting the last Seymour, the best song of the whole game.
The best song, yep, and we'll talk more about that.
So he's finally dead at this point, I believe.
I think you actually do the sending.
You actually send him this time. And then you kind of go a little bit further, and you actually confront Jet.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yep. And you see Jet...
just as he is in, like, the flashbacks. Just himself.
As himself. Titus has a chance to confront Jet and really tells him that, I hate you. But there is this common understanding of this cycle has to stop. And I think from both angles, they both see that there's a terrible thing going on in this world, and they have the power to stop it, and they're going to do their best. And Jet, who's still that final Aeon as a core, though he has some control over it, the only way to fight and kill Jet is to fight that final Aeon. So Jet essentially summons himself and transforms,
assumes that form.
Right.
He is.
And your party fights the final Aeon.
Well, that's what he's called, is Braska's Aeon.
Yeah. Yep.
So you end up having that big boss fight.
Well, and that makes sense, because going back to the Yu Yevon thing, Yu Yevon...
he possesses the Aeon.
And builds Sin around the Aeon by constructing Pyreflies. I mean, really, that's what it is. So after you fight and kill Jet, you are teleported to Yevon, and Yevon wants to assume any of the Aeons in the area. So the only way to eliminate this possibility of Yevon jumping from Aeon to Aeon is to eliminate all the Aeons. So Yuna summons each Aeon individually.
Well, I think Bahamut's faith even confronts her, because they go to the... he appears in Bavel to them and says, come to my chamber. And he says, we need you to call us.
Yeah.
We want to end this. And that's why you're sending out your Aeons. Yevon controls them, you defeat them, and they're gone.
They're gone. They're gone.
Gone.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, going back to that concept of Yevon assumes any Aeon and tries to build sin around that Aeon. And it's an endless cycle unless there's no Aeons left. So by summoning an Aeon and defeating Yevon within that Aeon is gone.
So she kept summoning. Why couldn't she just defeat the Aeon and then not summon?
Because...
were they all there with her?
What?
You know what I mean?
No.
So you summon an Aeon, and Yevon assumes that form, and then you kill that Aeon. Well, what happens if you just don't summon?
I think the idea is no matter where you are in Spira, you can summon those Aeons. So if at any point a summoner summons an Aeon that's a little too close to Yevon, it'll assume that Aeon and rebuild Sin.
So if she had only learned one Aeon...
I know. Well, like my game, I didn't have Yojimbo and the Magus Sisters, and I didn't have Anima.
Yeah.
So... what happens to those Aeons, right? Yeah, I know. I fully agree.
Plot holes!
I fully agree. I don't know if that's really the case, but that's kind of what I got out of the story that they were trying to tell. So yeah, in any case, Yuna summons all of her Aeons, Yevon assumes that Aeon, and the party defeats him. As a last resort,
you fight Yevon.
You fight Yevon as some sort of physical being. Assumably, and I think it's written in something somewhere official, probably the Ultimania. But Yevon was a person at some point, because I read somewhere that Yevon is
summoner.
Yunaleska's father.
Yeah.
I don't know. But in any case, he's not a human anymore. He is like lost ability to be human. He just is this form.
He's just a parasite.
Yeah, and really that's kind of what he's been this whole time. He's a parasite that attaches to the final Aeon to construct around it, and then when that construction dies, he does it again. So he's just being that parasite that he is. You destroy that parasite and Sin collapses in a field and explosion of fireflies, and the party watches while Sin is exploding, and
Titus begins to...
Well, you see a clip where all the Aeons, all the faith for the original Aeons are starting to petrify, and they're losing their power. They're waking up. They're ending this dream. And as this dream is ending, Xanarkin also is starting to fade, and with that Xanarkin fading, the dream state Xanarkin is also fading along with it.
Titus decides to tell them about him being a dream.
Yeah, I know, last minute.
Before the final boss.
This is the last time we're gonna fight together. Like, okay. Could have told us a little bit beforehand.
It's not even that. The way he said it was like, this is the last time. Like, if I had heard someone go, this is the last time we're gonna fight together, I'd be like, yeah, this is the end, right?
I know.
Not, I'm going to disappear.
Right. So, Titus is starting to disappear with the dream state wakening up, and he kind of just says, bye guys, and starts to run to leave.
Just no goodbyes, just wants
he just leaves. And Yuna is so struck by this. and chases after Titus. And
he stops.
He stops and she runs. He stops and turns around to catch her.
Yeah.
And she falls right through him and lands on the ground. And that moment is so heartbreaking.
Sad, yeah.
Like, she just lays there and she has tears streaming down her cheek and fireflies are going through the ship and she's just like, blank. And she gets back up, and, you know, they have a moment where Titus kind of faux hugs her because he can't
touch her.
And Yuna says that she loves him, and Titus leaps off the airship and joins the rest of the fireflies that are exploding from Sin and gives Jet a high five.
Oh yeah, and Oren's there too.
Oren.
Braska's not there though.
I forgot to mention that when they did the final summoning with...
Oren does kind of ask for a final sending. It's so brief. It doesn't do his character justice.
I know. Because he was such a strong character through this whole thing.
You kind of get a little bit of closure at the... Well, they of course, they sing one of the iconic songs, and then at the closing... You've got Yuna confronting everyone in Bavel, explaining that Sin is finally gone.
We can rebuild Spira. Yes. We can come out of this better people.
And then you get a little bit of a sneaky peek at the end of Titus.
Yeah, he's like in a fetal position in the middle of the ocean, and then he wakes up and swims towards the surface. But like...
I think they must have known that they were going to make a second part to this game.
Yeah, but like, even with a second part to the game, this scene makes no sense in 10-2. Like, I don't understand how the two are supposed to correlate at all. But yeah, they kind of make it seem like, nah, Titus is coming back. But
I think maybe it was a safe way to play it as maybe there is a chance he comes back, and if they never made the sequel. I didn't actually play the game to the end of Sentu. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I mean...
So I don't know.
Really, to be perfectly honest, and it is a bit of a spoiler... Titus doesn't come back unless you get 100%.
Yeah.
And then you get this, like, specialty ending where he can come back. But, like, otherwise, no. Like, you don't see it. Like, yeah, Yuna's whole, like, objective is to bring Titus back, but, like, unless you get a perfect score, then you get a little snippet of maybe, but, like, even then, you know? So, yeah, I mean, for all purposes, Titus is gone to the far plane.
Would he actually go to the far plane, though?
I don't know. I just say that because Oren, saw Oren and Braska, and...
They show his mom in the far plane, which I thought was interesting because technically she's a dream.
Fair.
Isn't that weird? Fireflies. That's what I don't... This is my biggest pet peeve, is that everything is explained with fireflies, which is fair for certain things, but not everything. It's basically, we can't explain this, so just trust it's probably fireflies.
Right, I know. So that was long-winded. Guys, welcome back if you skipped.
5 hours later.
Yeah, you missed quite a bit. So, the story, what did you think about the story, Kaylie?
I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about it while we were in the middle of our story. There's strong points and weak points. The fireflies specifically are... It's confusing because stuff is explained, well, it's because of fireflies, and at the same time, it's confusing because how... You know what I mean? Like, the fireflies is just a lame excuse to not have to explain stuff.
I think some things are easily, I understand where they're coming with that with the fireflies, because it seems like fireflies is kind of like Final Fantasy VII's life stream. Like, if you get enough of it condensed in one thing, it can turn into physical objects or memories or, you know, that kind of concept. It can be used by the Faith to be able to construct monsters as Aeons, or it can be used individually from the dead who can manifest themselves in real monsters. So, like, from that perspective, I understand that cycle of, you know, your life is preserved in fireflies, and when you die, they have to be sent to the far plane to begin the cycle again. But to have some things that, like, I don't see how breathing underwater would be explained away by fireflies.
I had to look it up. In the Ultimania, they explain that the reason why they can breathe underwater, specifically for Blitzball for long periods of time, is because of the concentration of fireflies, but it does not explain the ocean.
Yeah. I don't know.
They also say that fireflies are used for, like, recording spheres and all that stuff. And I'm sorry, if they are the souls of dead people, you are making a recording off of dead people.
Well, I mean, it's this, again, the similar concept as Final Fantasy VII, where condensed Mako energy, which is dead people, is constructing, you know, to make the magic.
That's fair. But why is it that we're drawing the line at Machina, but using soul people is just fine for recording a family video?
That's true, yeah. I always thought that Machina and, like, Mako were the same concepts. And maybe that's why it was so forbidden, because fireflies were supposed to be this, they're the dead, so respect them concept.
The Machina, I believe, is forbidden because Bavel feared Xanarkand because Xanarkand used the Machina. Mm-hmm. But Bavel had I learned this from one of the guys walking around in the Calmlands, but the theory is from him that Bavel was not as strong with Machina, but their Aeons, their summoners, were more advanced, which is why they managed to eradicate Xanarkand. And they forbade the Machina so that this would not happen again. And they actually say that originally the Hymn of the Faith was Xanarkand's thing, and it was considered taboo. But when they started using the hymn as a way of defiance, that they actually turned it around to make the hymn a sacred thing. That this is what we sing to be united as one. And that's kind of how they attain this world power.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, but you gotta dig for that stuff.
Oh, I know.
The far plane concept was interesting.
Yeah, and see, that one is really weird too. It's perplexing in the way that it only shows the people who have died. But, like, from Riku's theory,
it's just the memories.
It's just the memories of the people who have died. Like, how do the fireflies know a difference?
You know, they say that when you're in the Xanarkand ruins, try and find Yunaleska, Lady Yunaleska, they say that this place is like a giant sphere because it replays memories, which I'm assuming is what the far plane is kind of like. That it's just replaying these memories based on what you're thinking, which is why you can't actually interact with because there is no memories there. It's playing off of your memories.
Yeah, but, like, for example, it showed Seymour in those memories. When Seymour was a kid.
Yeah.
But, like, the far plane wouldn't show Seymour because he technically wasn't there. So,
but
like,
they can't play
your soul has to in some way be sent to the far plane in order for your vision to show up there. That's what's perplexing to me.
I don't know.
Do you see where I'm going with that?
Unless it's playing, I don't know. I don't think it was actually thought about. That's the thing. I don't think they thought it quite through. It was just, this is how it is.
Like how are memories being recorded? Unless it's more of like a timestamp thing, like, because Xanarkand is so concentrated, it just kind of records stuff randomly and then plays it back randomly. That could be, but then, like, the far plane can only show you people who have been sent to the far plane.
Like, that memory has been sent to the far plane?
No,
like
not
the Firefly memory?
Not necessarily memory, but, like, I suppose
that's
that
what
memory.
Riku's saying.
Yeah.
Riku's point is, you're not actually seeing their soul Firefly, you're seeing just the memory of them.
Yeah.
Because you can't actually interact. Mm-hmm. But what's funny, like I said earlier, is that Titus's mom is there, but Titus's mom, like Titus,
I know,
is
and
not real.
that's a hole that I don't know about. I can't explain that one away.
The dad stuff.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it a whole lot in our story overview. Titus has a daddy issues for sure.
Issues. I like that it helps with character growth. However, the strongest character growth was Jet's.
Yeah, I know.
It really was Jet's.
Titus,
he obviously, at the beginning when Jet leaves, Titus is like 10. He's little. And you kind of understand that he blames his dad for a lot of this stuff. His dad's a cocky guy, which he is in the beginning. It shows him being cocky. Yeah. And you see Jet's character growth. So I think that by the end, it's like, stuff's okay, but I still hate you, Dad. But it's still so cringy.
As you're playing as Titus too, he every now and then he kind of has these moments of, maybe I actually do. Never mind.
Yeah.
Like he's coming to terms with the fact that he doesn't hate his father as much as he says he does. And I think even him saying that last moment before, with Jet, I think he's not saying I hate you as much as it's just
I hate you.
I don't know. I don't think the meaning is I hate you. I think the meaning is opposite in some way. Some stupid, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really liked the plot twist switch that they did, where like the whole first half of the more than the first half of the game. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on if you've played it before. Because for me, the first half of the game, I'm like, Yuna's going to her death. I know this. I know that this is the lore. I know that that's what they mean. I know that it's cringy now that, Titus is saying, hey, we're going to go to Xanarkand. We're going to do all this stuff. And, but she knows she's going to her death through the whole game. And then to have the role reversed, where all of a sudden Yuna's no longer threatened to die with the final Aeon because they're not doing it anymore. However, Titus is going to be dead when all the Faith wake up and the Faith aren't dreaming his dream anymore. So like that twist was it made the story even sadder. like it's already a pretty sad story, like, this endless cycle of death and this like You managed to find a way to save the summoner, the main point of... Yeah, and yet you still can't be together.
There's still a tragic death.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
What'd you give the story?
I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, I gave it a 9.
Oh, did you?
The Firefly thing, there's so many plot holes to me.
There's a few plot holes, but I felt like the way that they told the story was really well done.
I agree.
And I think that they picked Titus as a, quote, main character, but Yuna was the main character. This was Yuna's story all along.
Which is ironic, because the whole time Titus is going, this is my story.
It's so arrogant. But yeah, I mean, really, if you play the game and you realize that Yuna is the highlight of the story, that this is Yuna's game, Yuna's the main character.
She really is the main character, though.
Absolutely.
It's her pilgrimage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know. There's so many more opportunities that, like, the characters were shelled out well, but like not beyond what you know. Like, there's no backstory, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot of backstory. I mean, you know a little bit about Riku, and the Albed's backstory as a whole. You get a little bit about Lulu and Waka's backstory with Chappu and Lulu and Waka's first pilgrimage that failed. You get a little bit about that. But like, yeah, I don't know. there's not much. I mean, really, there's a big 10-year gap where, like, yeah, Yuna's with her dad, and then her dad goes off to be a summoner and dies, and then Kamari, like, helps her to take her to Besaid, where she's, raised... where she's raised by essentially Kamari and the village people, with Waka and Lulu being, brother and sister figures. You get that concept, but, like, you don't know what those people have gone through that time.
Yeah. When they're explaining this stuff, it's kind of flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very well talked about. There's no, like, a little bit of Chapu's story kind of brings Lulu and Waka's story together, but it's flat compared to everyone else. One of the strongest characters that I liked the most was Oren.
Oren was very well plotted.
He carried the entire game very well.
Honestly, yes. I mean, if Yuna's not the main character, it would probably be Oren too. Over Titus.
What I think this game did very well was tell two stories at the same time, which was Oren, Jet's, and Braska's. And it was well done. It was just enough. I wanted to see more, especially I wanted to see more, like, Jet Spheres, a little bit of skits and stuff.
Did you go back and collect?
I didn't see them all. I don't think so, but...
I think there's, like, 12 or 15 of them, something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to go try and find them then. What you did see was enough. You saw, like I said, Jet had the most prominent character development that was actually smooth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As far as character development goes, that's different than backstory.
Well, yes, I agree.
And character development, like, obviously, Jet and Oren had some good character development where, really, even within the two stories for Oren, like, he was a kid. He was kind of an arrogant kid when he first went on the pilgrimage. 10 years later, he's doing it again, and he's bringing that wisdom to the table. Yeah. And, he's kind of...
He's steering them in the right direction that they need to
absolutely. Be. And he's seen as a well-respected person. And they all, like, the whole team, bringing Riku in. Yuna goes to Oren and is like, is this okay? Like, who is Oren to say no? Right. Like, it's the summoner's choice if she wants it.
He even says that, too. Sometimes he tries to force the party because he kind of knows better.
Right.
But ultimately, it's still Yuna's decision.
Right.
Yeah.
And he plays that role really well.
Absolutely.
He respects her in every regard.
Oren,
and pushes Titus to protect her with everything he's got,
He is my favorite character.
He's a great character. He really is.
I think Titus's character development, if anyone was going to have character development, I think his fell short.
Disagree.
Me.
It's not so much that he has strong character development, but Titus is a child when you first meet him. He's annoying.
I felt that way about him clear up till the end, though.
Oh, see, I didn't. As he realized that Yuna was doing this really as a death sentence, he started to mature a little bit with his dialogue and his overall, like, concept of what was going on, and it became real. And I think that turned the tables to a lot of things to happen, like to even have the strength to fight Sin and to fight Yunaleska, like that was not so impulsive as it was like the first time you met him.
What's frustrating to me is the me the entire ride.
Yeah, I was annoyed by that too.
That's what I'm seeing is he's still that kid because this is all about him. And even Yuna says, it's not about you. This is my story too.
Yeah, she specifically stops and says, it's my story too.
And it really is her story.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's clear up to the end. He doesn't want to tell them about he's going to disappear. It's just like, why are you so selfish?
Yeah.
You didn't like that when that happened to you, so why would you turn around and do it to the people that really care about you?
I know. And you care about them, clearly.
I mean, he didn't even tell Oren.
I know.
I mean, it's just, that's selfish to me. That's just being a brat.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. I agree, but he does get better towards the end.
He absolutely has character development. It's just...
You want to know who doesn't have character development? That's Lulu.
Yeah.
Zero. Probably the only development she gets is that she hates Titus at the beginning and hates him less towards the end, and that's it.
Her character is very... Yes, I agree.
She's just there for her boobs to flop around. Like, that's it.
She does have a little bit, I think, but they did it backwards because she's already this mature kind of person, and you kind of get her story of her first pilgrimage and how she failed.
Yeah, but there's not much there.
No, I agree. There's still, like I said, there's not much.
When you're in the Calmlands, you get one little snippet of the possibility of them being on another pilgrimage.
I think it was just her before I don't think she did it with Waka.
No, Waka was with him because Waka said that he was too interested. He agreed to be on the pilgrimage, but he was too interested in Blitzball, which is why he was going to retire from Blitzball altogether. Oh yeah. Also, I'm not really clear about what Yu Yevon's motivation is. Like, it's one thing to want to be eternal, but like, what's with this sin destruction thing? Or is it like an inherited value from the war, you know?
I'm guessing that, because of the war, that's what's left of Xanarkand, and it's constantly fighting the people of Bavel, maybe? I don't know. It's not really explained.
And then also, like, how sin can go between the dream and the Spira. Like, I don't really... There's a lot of that, like, weirdness between all of that. Like, Yevon and...
He must be linked to the faith that are... doing the dream.
Right, and that much that's why I say he's like the center of the dream, because with his death the rest of the dream ends. Where like if he doesn't die, the dream I think would still continue even if the other faiths are dead. I think he is the faith that is running the summoning at Xanarkand.
Possibly, yes.
That's that. Again, theorizing. Yeah. I don't know, but that's kind of what I was.
So many questions left unanswered.
Yeah, I still gave the story a 10 out of 10. I'm sticking with it. I just again, really solid. Yeah, there's a little bit left to be explained and a little left, but. The story that was told, Yuna's story that was told, was solid all the way through. I liked that it was linear for the majority of the game. It was linear, but you could always go back. And that's why I think like 13, when we'll get to 13 soonish, and it's very linear, but like 10, it's very similar in 10 to that way, but 10 you can go back. Like at any point, if you wanted to go back to, I don't know if you can board a boat to go back to Bavel, but you could go back pretty far if you wanted to. Where like,
Besaid?
Or yeah, that's what I meant. Besaid. I don't know if you could board a boat to go back to Besaid in like while you're at the Calmlands. Would you be able to go all the way back to Besaid? I don't know, but I mean, you could go pretty far.
Yeah.
But then once you get on the airship, you can go wherever you want. Yeah, you can revisit anything. And I love that concept. Where like Final Fantasy 13, again, we haven't reviewed it, so it's hard to put full quotes on this, but I've played it. And yeah, it's very linear, and you can't go back. And when it does open up where you can explore the world a lot more, it's kind of irrelevant to the story. It's not revisiting what you've already been to. It's just like, yeah, and here's open world for you to walk around, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like how this game did that linearity with open exploration.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Fair.
So you want to move on to graphics?
Yeah.
All right. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I also gave it a 9 out of 10. My favorite was how they did the fireflies.
Yeah, the fireflies are very satisfying.
The cutscenes, the fireflies just looked amazing.
What was your favorite cutscene?
Oh man, that's hard.
There's a lot of really good ones.
I think the sending at Kilika probably is my favorite, and it makes sense. It was one of the first major movies. It's all the pictures are of Yuna doing the sending. It just was well done. Very interesting and moving moment.
The whole wedding cutscene is really good. Just Yuna is so pretty in those cutscenes, and the veil looks really, really well done. And then, she's falling off the tower, and she summons the Aeon, and Valfor comes out and just looks phenomenal. It just is really well done.
Were really good.
Yeah.
They did Titus a little dirty, in my opinion. He does not look very good in his...
He doesn't look the same. And honestly, I kind of have that problem with the majority of the cutscenes versus game. They don't look like each other.
Riku is strikingly strangely different too, but I feel like they did Lulu what little she appeared. Lulu was good, and Oren was good, and even Kamari.
He had too many teeth.
Yeah, I swear he did. It looks like you said. It looks like they have chiclets for.
I think that they had. I don't want to offend anybody in generalizing, but I feel like the gameplay video or the gameplay character models look a little more Americanized. And,
I felt like they were trying to go almost different. I don't know. It's very hard.
But the cutscenes were almost like the characters had an Asian vibe about them. Where they don't in the gameplay character models.
I agree 100%.
And it's hard to put my finger on it because it's not like a skin tone thing. It's just the way that their facial features are different between the cutscenes and the gameplay that makes them look a little more Asian.
Which, there really is obviously there is none of those races. It kind of makes sense maybe for someone no, I take this, excuse me, I'm just mumbling. It's fine if that's what the case, but like you said, when they're so drastically different from the cutscene versus, you can tell, it looks like they're leaning towards one way, where in the cutscenes it looks like a completely different story.
It makes me wonder if the Japanese...
the models,
if they're a little different, and then when it was ported to the US or North America or even the PAL regions, if the game character models were altered. I don't know.
No, well, what I assume,
it just seems weird.
They say in the credits they talk about the models they used for the cutscenes. So I don't know how it works, but maybe it is that they used
two different companies.
Well, the company that did the characters, maybe their cast was Asian, and the character models was the character models. So I can see why maybe that would happen. I don't know how that works, but
it could just be a discrepancy between the two different divisions that were working on those. I don't know.
To me, the most noticeable was that Riku's skin tone did not match her character model, and it almost didn't look like it fit the rest of her character.
I kind of felt that way with Titus in the cutscenes. Titus in the gameplay, he's very pale. Where then the cutscenes, he's very tan and almost yellow.
See, and that's the thing. it didn't even look natural.
Right,
to me.
yeah,
like
yeah.
none of their skin, like those two specifically, their skin tones did not look natural. It looked like
spray on tan or something.
I don't even know. It's so strange. And there was like this graininess to it almost. I don't know how to explain it. And you don't see it long enough to be like figuring out what's going on, but you can tell that something does not look the same as what you're used to seeing, and it's almost distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
I don't know. In any case, yes. The Aeons, really cool.
Very cool. My only complaint with the Aeons is Bahamut is a little too bulky. I mean, it is what it is.
He's the king of dragons. What do you want from him?
I want him to be a little bit slimmer. No,
I don't understand is he's so bulky and his Faith is this muscular guy, but like the Faith actual person is a little kid.
Yeah, I don't know. Bahamut is so bulky that he looks like he's struggling to move. It's kind of like the bodybuilders that are so big that they can't really get around anymore. Like, he kind of looks like that. Like, but doesn't, like, he can't quite bend his arm to his...
He's your first Aeon you get that breaks the damage barrier. So, like, it makes sense that he's
absolutely designed to be... Bulky. Yeah, for sure. I just think that in all the previous games... Bahamut's been like this very dragon styled character, where in this game he's very like muscular and bulky and huge. I don't know. I don't like his bulkiness. I would have preferred him to be like super tall and like dragon, like traditional dragon, where he's, you know.
But I think on the other hand, I say this, but not really, I guess, because there's Ixion, but they're supposed to be people.
Yeah, I suppose.
I liked Valfor. Very new, isn't it? Isn't he? I don't think he's in
any, and I think it's a girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No.
Oh, okay.
But when you look at the Faith model, the Faith like in the glass dome thing, it looks very female. And when if you look at Valfor's character or like design, there's like a body structure in the center, and it looks very female too.
Interesting.
I don't know for sure. I haven't like looked it up or anything, but that was kind of my assumption that it's supposed to be a little more feminine.
I really liked. This is my favorite Shiva of all the Shiva designs.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
And what was really cool was that the Aeons made an appearance in one of the end
cutscenes, yeah.
And Shiva's looked amazing.
I know. Shiva looks really cool in this game. No pun intended.
Well, it's so satisfying, her moves when she snaps and the ice breaks and just
well, even the way that she attacks, it's very fluid and the movements are awesome. Where like Ifrit, he just kind of like jumps and slashes. I kind of
like Ifrit's when he rolls and slashes. Ixion's
pretty stiff.
Yeah. And like sometimes there's something about Ixion's that is satisfying the way it like like when he
throws his horn,
a lightning bolt or something like that. Yeah. And it's satisfying, but some of the other stuff is not so satisfying, and it's
the funny thing about Ixion, and again, me with my like, he's like this, but I don't do research on it. But I'm pretty sure he's modeled after previous Final Fantasy enemies, the unicorn enemies, because they do that similar like horn toss move. So like, I think he's modeled after those, but still like, I love Ixion's like overall design.
Yeah.
Like the mane is really cool and like has little like braids and stuff, and it's just cool, cool. Overall cool. Valfor, I love the summoning animation for Valfor and that like gentleness where Yuna like strokes its beak. It's just like, I don't know, there's something really like sweet about Valfor that I can't quite I can't quite put into
very,
like
almost elegant.
Yeah, very elegant, very like almost a mom almost a mom vibe that I get from, I don't know, it's funny.
What I attribute it to is it's the first Aeon.
Yeah.
She spent the most time.
Well, and I think that I can relate to that as well, because growing up with this game, that's the first Aeon you get. And you probably, when I was a kid anyway, you get that first summon and you're spamming that crap like all the time, and you're probably seeing Valfor the most.
Well, and it gets that special attention at the wedding scene.
Yeah.
And there really is a lot of care taken into Valfor. And yeah, there's just something special about it. Yep. This is minor. I liked the glass breaking. I hated the battle, like so many battles, but the glass breaking was kind of satisfying.
The transition.
And that very fluid transition. Macalania Woods and Guadaslam, very interesting like areas.
Yeah, the like Rainbow Road thing is really weird.
It's like iridescent.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And there's like the like orbs that are there, and it's cool. It's really a mythical place to be walking around, and you feel that fantasy vibe in there, like strong.
Absolutely.
Where some of the other places you didn't really get that, you know.
Guadasalam, I liked how different it was.
The tree concept was really cool.
It looks like I would live there. Like, if I could just, like, this place exists in real life, I would move there. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something very interesting. And they really took, I don't know if this is because of the HD remake, because it's been a while since I played the original, but, like, they took a lot of care into adding all those fine details in the different rooms. Like, it's not very big, the Guadasalam. But, like, the shop and someone's house is just a lot of
There was a lot of details
stuff
in the original. There was a lot of details in the original, too. Obviously, those details are enhanced in the HD remaster.
Yeah.
But I remember it being a homey kind of place.
Yeah.
Aside from Seymour's Mansion, which is very, like, airy and empty.
Yeah.
And like you go into the like buffet area and there's like it's just awkward,
it's
like really
open and empty.
And I'm sure that that's a very specific design choice. Like they could have made it, you know,
homey,
a closed in like long table that everyone sits at, and you know, but they
needed
didn't.
to have that level of something is not quite right here.
Right.
The only other good point that I had was that the different races were kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. And there was that dominant race, but you still had your Ronso, your Guado, your Hypello, the little Rise issue puff. And the Albed, I guess, if you want to consider that. But like it's not like it's new, because they've had different races of people, but it was the first, in my opinion, where they were all living harmoniously, where there is specific races. You know what I mean? Because like Final Fantasy IX had different like people that looked different, but like the Hypello were their own thing, and the Guados were their own thing, where they were established. You know,
they were villages of.
Seymour was so important because he was half Guado, half human.
I mean, same with Yuna.
Yeah.
Yuna's half Albed and half human.
And it's important. It's an important aspect of the game, and I liked that.
Yeah, sure. The animations for the characters were really clean for the most part. I think the the like Titus moving is a little stiff. Like just not their cutscene, not not the FMV cutscene,
yeah.
but like the regular cutscene stuff,
Yes.
the regular, that was okay.
There was something
like,
clunky about it.
Just Titus going from point A to point B as you're controlling him was very stiff. It's a PS2 game. I was playing it on a PS4, but it's still a PS2 game, so it still had that same clunkiness to it to make it feel the same. But there is something weirdly stiff about the movements that is hard to put into words.
Sometimes the way he talked, the way they had his mouth moving, and how stiff he kind of was in certain angles, it reminded me of those wooden dummies where the mouth just open and closed up and down.
Yeah.
And it was kind of creepy. But there would be times where his body would be like in motion, just standing there, kind of going up and down. But then his head would just immediately jerk up to the side while he's talking, like, and looking up. And there's something not fluid about it, like they were cutting corners.
Right, yeah.
And there was a little bit of clunky. I wrote it down as clunky. Like there was something kind of clunky about certain spots.
Sure. I really associate that to it being an early PS2 game. They didn't really know what they were doing with the PS2 when this came out. You can tell, like, Final Fantasy X-2 drastically different in art, like, the way that the animation is. It's very fluid compared to this. But, for early PS2, like, it still looks really solid. Really, really good. And, I mean, I'm judging this off of the HD remaster.
Right.
So, like, it's hard for us to put this score on the original PS2 game. So, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. If you're going to play it, this is our experience was with the HD remaster where, the original is a little bit different. But as I recall, everything is just a little bit fuzzier, but looks about the same. Yeah. You're going to get the same experience for the most part. The FMVs, I don't know if they did anything to them at all. Like, they look...
Sure. They look really
just as good as I remembered them looking. Like, I don't feel like they looked better than what they looked like. The mouth movements still are clunky and they weren't quite matched up, just like... they were in the original. The
only thing I think the HD remake did wrong was that Yuna's eyes were strange. Did you notice that?
I didn't, and you've told me this prior to the podcast, and I still have no idea.
I tried taking screen caps, and I could never get it at the right time. It's just... I think they were so worried about preserving noticing that one eye's green, one eye's blue, because, she's half Albed, half human. And I think when they're trying to preserve that, it makes her just look like she's staring.
Maybe the problem is that her eyes are too color saturated.
Maybe.
So, like, they're a little more noticeable where the other characters are a little more muted. So, like, you don't notice them as much.
I did think about that because Titus's eyes are stark blue. Or not stark, they're very blue.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking... while his eyes, his pupils, and they all seem the same size-wise to Yuna's, but Yuna's is so different that it almost makes her look...
bug-eyed or something?
Something. And it makes something seem off.
I don't see it. I don't know what
it drove me nuts. And it wasn't all the time, but, like, a good portion of the time it was like, whoa.
Really, the only thing that really bothered me...
was her hair. Did you notice the little strand of hair on her head that was sitting up?
Oh, not at all. No, the only thing that really bothered me was the mouth movements.
Oh, yeah.
Where I felt like the voice acting was timed funny to make it seem like they were trying to match the mouth movements, but, like, half the time they weren't trying at all. Yet, like, the timing was weird.
Yeah.
So, like, that, like... I don't know. There was something wrong with, like, the whole mouth movements and dialogue that just didn't line up in any way.
That's so hard to say because it's like overall, like we both rated it the same, 9 out of 10. Was very good. Mm-hmm. The things that were quote unquote wrong, there was no specific thing, but you could tell there was something that was not fluid and natural.
That's exactly it. And that's why a lot of these are just like nitpicking at it, but it's just kind of this like awkwardness that didn't really pull away from the game a whole lot, but it just made it awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else graphically. The HD we talked about it.
Yeah.
It does look good. It really does.
Yeah.
Let's move on to gameplay. It's typically our longest section. I gave gameplay a 9 out of 10.
I also
All right.
9 out of 10.
I want to start off by saying the gameplay as a whole is not bad, if you can't tell by our scores. That said, there's a few features that had me scratching my head. The first one I want to talk about, because I didn't write it down and I want to get it out. What in the world was with the crystal collecting thing at the end of the game?
The crystal collecting.
Yeah, with the, like, icebergs?
Oh, in Sin?
Yeah.
That, like, the only thing I can think is it was their way of, like, getting you some stronger weapons and stuff. I have no idea. Was not explained. At first I thought, is this going to end? Like, am I missing something?
I thought that too.
Because, like, I didn't want to break out into a fight anymore.
I kind of remember doing that when I played the last time through. I can't remember how long ago it's been since I've played this game. Probably about 10 years, like
yeah.
the rest. But out of the entire game, this was the only portion at the end of the game that I'm like, oh, I remember this. And I'm like, why is this here? What is the point of doing this? So, okay, to put it in perspective, in case anyone's listening and they haven't done this, when you get towards the end of the game, you save your game and you head into this tower where you find Jet. However, before you actually find Jet, you are placed in this big open room / forest.
It's like,
it's weird.
the background's moving. You're supposed to be in Sin, so it's just all this abstract-y background.
The camera is constantly rotating, and you have to collect these crystals that are also items while avoiding like these
spears or something
spike
of light.
Are they light? I thought they were like ice,
maybe
ice spears or something.
Your
I don't know.
guess is as good as
but
mine.
like, okay, so the ground starts to glow, and then these like big spikes come out from the ground, and if you get hit by a spike, you encounter a monster.
Yeah.
And this continues until you've collected 10 of the crystals, and then you fight Jet. But like, that room has no significance to the story.
You don't even know how you get there. You just do.
You're just there, yeah. And then you collect these crystals for no reason. And then you're like, you don't have to fight enemies if you're careful, but like you can fight enemies if you need to. And then you're collecting these items, which are kind of irrelevant to the rest of the game, because by this point, you're already ready for the final fight. Why do you need these stupid random... I used one item out of that whole like thing, and that was the white sphere... the white magic sphere, and I gave that to Yuna so that she could have haste, and that was it. Like, that was the only thing I used. Haste Aga. But yeah, like, no idea, no clue.
That was a little strange, I'll agree. I don't know why.
And when you're fighting the final fight a couple times, like I did, that room is really freaking annoying.
That would be really annoying.
Not only that, you have to get through that room, but then you also have to sit and wait for all the dialogue. So,
thanks a lot.
No idea. Yeah, it baffled me. Going through there the first time, I'm like, this is weird. The second time, I'm like, this is really dumb. The third time, I'm like, get me out of here. I cannot handle this anymore.
You brought this up in Zap Chats, but the sphere grid being the first link tree.
Yeah, well, I really do agree that, or I really do think that it could be the first skill tree that exists. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the history of every video game, but like, if you think of open world video games, they really didn't start coming out until like the PS3 era. And if they were prior to that, they weren't very prominent. Maybe there were a couple like MMORPGs that were a little more like the open world stuff that we have now. But all the games that we have now have these skill trees where you can kind of open up and do things where you gain experience and you can spend those points in your skill tree. And that's exactly how the Sphere Grid is, where you're
deciding who learns what and what road you want to take. If you want Titus to stray into Oren's Sphere Grid and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and
it gives you more of a feeling of you're in control, you're doing this role play.
Yeah, and you can kind of go where you want to depending on what spheres you pick up along the way. There's two different sphere grids that you can pick in the HD version versus the original version. So I picked the original sphere grid, and you picked the new one. The original sphere grid, every character is given a very specific starting location, and you're kind of locked from going anywhere outside of that designated sphere path until you've acquired stuff later on in the game. So when you first start off, every character has a very specific role to play, and every character has very specific enemies that they're designed to fight. And this plays off really well for the first half of the game until you get more experience and you get more tactics to fight enemies, where, that can be explored a little better. And, then at that point it opens up where you can dip, like Titus's path into Oren or Waka or however you want to go about that. And there's unique spheres to help you achieve those goals. You can either unlock them with a level unlock sphere at designed predetermined locations, or you could use like a friend sphere that will teleport you to where one of your other characters are at, or you could use a teleport sphere that would teleport you to any location that anyone else has been to. There's a return sphere where you can return to any point that character has already been to. So there's so many locations, or there's so many ways for you to navigate this huge sphere grid, and there's so many options as far as what you want any one character to achieve, except for Kimahri. Kimahri is dropped right in the middle of the sphere grid, and he has a very small, like, independent growth that he can go through, but then it kind of opens up to wherever you want to go. And, depending on where you send Kimahri, that's kind of the direction his character will grow in, and it's really early in the game. So, like, you can have him be a black mage to support Lulu or Waka or anyone, and then he's just like a worse version of that character. And it kind of makes Kimahri irrelevant in the entire game. Like,
he really is. His character is not irrelevant to the story, but he really is that extra character that isn't really needed. He is important. He is the main reason.
He's Red 13.
Well,
like, if he wasn't there, it wouldn't be a big deal, but like, he has some story plot, so it's okay.
Explains that he ran into Kimahri after he had gotten injured from Lady Yunaleska, and he climbed down Mount Gagazet, told Kimahri, go to Bavel and find Yuna. And Kimahri does, and Kimahri stays with Yuna. So really, because of Kimahri, Yuna was able to grow up the way she did.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it.
He's got a really strong character, but as far as battle, I used him like 2% of the time.
I used him pretty well. I tried to use him for the first half of the game. And like I was trying to level him up because I knew that you had that one fight where you have to use Kimahri, and that fight can be really hard if you never use Kimahri. So I was using him up until that fight on Mount Gagazet, which again, we didn't even talk about him hardly at all in the story. Like he's just kind of there. He has a little bit of a story where he's bullied by other Ronsos, but he has one fight where it's just him against these two other Ronsos, and if you haven't leveled up with him, it's kind of difficult. But, I managed to level up with him, and then after that fight, I didn't use him again.
Everyone has a specific function for all the types of fiends except Kimahri. And the reason it is because he, quote-unquote, knows the way of the fiend. He's your blue mage. He is your enemy skill person, which is fine if you like using those things, but like he's a weak hitter at first. There's not much magic, and even his Lancet ability, which is how you learn the enemy skills, it's not even that strong. He's just kind of an inconvenience, and you only have 3 characters in play, and I don't want that third person being Kimahri.
Yeah, and his ability to use enemy skills is irrelevant when the only time you can use it is with his overdrive.
Yeah, I agree.
What is the point? Like, I don't want to even use Kimahri because I can't use any of those skills until his overdrive is up, and at that point, I have to use Kimahri to get his overdrive up. So, like, why? Why would I use him?
I had Kimahri's overdrive up in case I needed it, because he had Mighty Guard, which was helpful to me. The only time he was otherwise useful was when my other characters were low on HP, and I just needed someone a little healthier to help pick up the rest of the party. He was otherwise an inconvenience.
The only time I really used him is if I needed a quick black mage when Lulu's MP was low.
I had him take,
That's it.
I had him take Oren's path, hoping that, because he has piercing item or weapon.
Makes sense.
And so I thought, well, if I can up his strength, maybe I can have Kimahri and Oren tag team it. Well, the problem is Oren's specific enemy doesn't actually come up that often. And then I just have Oren. I don't need 2 Orens, not really.
I mean, that can be said for any character.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not needed.
You're never really without one of those characters unless they're dead. But if they're dead, you're probably in a worse state anyway.
Yeah.
Like, even if they die during battle and you have a victory or you flee, then they're back to life. It's not like they're infinitely dead, so then you just heal them and you're done. Like, Kimahri is just pointless. End of story.
Although, speaking of types of characters, Riku, I like what they did with the thief role, if you will. I think that her mixing items, and she gets there's so many specific items that are used for customizing, but what's nice is they're not items that your other characters would normally be able to use, which makes her special.
Exactly.
And I liked that. It added a little bit of extra oomph to that role as a thief. That thief, what are they called? Or the drag, my words are hard today. You've got your fighter and your mage, where the thief jobs. There you go. The job is it. The thief, kind of, in my opinion, always fell short in past video games, where it made sense here. She didn't attack very hard, but she was quick, she was stealthy, and she could mix.
Fast.
Yes.
Very fast.
Helpful.
If you put Heistaga on, Riku is out like every like 2 turns every other turn. It's like Riku, Yuna, Riku, Titus, Riku, Yuna. Like, she just was out like crazy.
Riku, I chose the other sphere grid, the new one, and I don't know. I know that hers tends to get close to full life, I think, but I had her do auto life. I had her get auto life because she was there. And I got a weapon that was 1 MP cost. So, and I didn't even use it because I ended up being OP anyway from other reasons.
Yeah.
But I could have went into that battle and had her cast auto life on everyone and we would have been fine.
Oh, man, that's
amazing?
nice. So I didn't get like any specialty magic at all when I played. I didn't get any of the extra aeons. I didn't do anything above and beyond the main
how many hours? And you put in more hours than I did.
I did,
and
yeah.
I got all the special aeons, and I botched Yuna's sphere grid so bad.
How?
I don't know what happened. The problem is, your characters have a new the layout's different. I mean, it's the same concept, the same layout, but like the actual spheres are different. But they kind of follow. You still have your immediate, your first stages of magic, Curaga. But you can branch out a little bit easier to different magics. So for a while, Yuna had like Thunder Aga and Fire Aga, which was nice, and Lulu also had like life. That was very helpful. Well, I must have followed a path I shouldn't have because I completely bypassed Cura. And her HP was bad. Like I had to start using the HP nodes, and she just was a weak character. Like she was even weaker than Kamari for a while.
She was my strongest character on the second half of the game.
That. And once I was able to really get her on the right path, it was great, but I had to use almost all my specialty spheres on Yuna because I even tried going back to and I did get Cura, but like, I mean, at that point, I should have just went for Curaga, but it just seemed so incomplete at that point.
Yeah.
But it just was so, I botched it up really bad.
What was your party for like end game content? What were you mainly using? I mean, I know that you can use all of them at any given battle, which is a unique trait to this game, but
Oren was always in my party, and I shifted between Yuna, Titus, and Riku. Because Yuna and Titus learned Mug, and Yuna used Steal and Use. And of course, Riku had those. So when I needed a bunch of an item, those three were out. And then, as I needed my black mage or hitting aerial enemies, I swapped out the others. But for the most part, Riku could take care of some of both Wakka's and Lulu's. So I would just throw a fire gem or whatever, whatever kind of a gem. And so really it just was, as needed. But like Titus threw a haste Aga on everyone or a new slow Aga. I mean, I just buffed Titus up a little bit more for his attacks, and I was set. So
interesting. So my character list was mainly Oren, Yuna, and whoever I needed. I mean, Oren was kind of swappable too, but Yuna was out, especially the second half of the game. Yuna was out all the time.
Interesting.
And that's mainly because it dawned on me that Yuna's magic stat is insane. So like, why wouldn't I make her learn all the magic Agas and have her be my black mage for the second half of the game? So that's exactly what I did. As soon as Lulu got the Agas, I used the black magic spheres, got all 4 of those, and then Lulu eventually made her way to Flare, and
so you did get Flare.
I did get Flare, but Flare is Lulu's final magic. It's a normal magic. It's not blocked by level 4 spheres.
I never got Flare.
So
it was close.
Lulu, I didn't even have Lulu get Flare. I think I had
Riku.
No, I think it was Wakka. I think Wakka ends at Lulu's sphere grid, or gets really close to it. So I had Wakka go back and unlock that level 3 key sphere. Then I had Yuna teleport to his location, go over and get Flare. Then I had Lulu teleport to her location and get Flare. So, like, all three of those had Flare. I only really needed it on Yuna because Yuna was my main black mage just because her magic stat was so high. So when I went into the final fight, that was kind of my, like, go-to stuff.
Yeah.
My go-to strategy was, like, Yuna casts Flare as much as possible. Riku was kind of doing the, like, magic, she was doing the curing because she was so fast, and I had a ton of, like, X potions and Albed potions and easy stuff to just throw out there, because I was stealing all the time. So yeah, and then Oren was such a heavy hitter that, like, especially on the final boss, like, he was doing just as much as Yuna was doing flares, so, like, why wouldn't I? But yeah, it took a couple times for me to fight the final boss, like, before I had a decent strategy down, but once I got a rhythm, I was okay. Like, the second half of the final boss, he gets a lot harder because his overdrive changes, so it hits harder, but also he has way more HP, so, like, you have to, like, those pillars on the side of him, like, the second half of the fight, you don't even worry about the pillars, just attack him.
Do you want to know how I beat the end boss?
Yeah, go for it, tell me.
I threw out a few limit or overdrives, I threw out 1 or 2 summons, and then I proceeded to annihilate him with the Magus Sisters.
Nice.
It wasn't even a fight. And I got through the first half of his thing, you know, it was like, it'll be a little difficult to be fine. I busted them out thinking that they would go really quick. Oh no. They not only did
they had fun.
They had a ball. They had so much fun. And the whole time I'm thinking, because I read that if you let them do as they will, they're more motivated to keep fighting. Well, I kept doing that. And of course, freaking Cindy, the big ladybug, the whole time is resting. And I was sitting there swearing at her the whole time. Like, of course you're resting. You need to have your fat butt and do something. Blah, 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 blah. And I can't believe it's just sitting there. And of course, the whole time, the other two are like just pulling everyone else along. It's fine. But I didn't really realize it until their overdrives all came up in sync. So it was like, oh, well, I'm pretty sure they do break the damage limit, so we'll see how much it does. Eliminated them. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for Sin.
Wow.
Just absolutely annihilated him. It was barely even, it was just like watching someone else fight for me, basically, because it was. They completely annihilated him. The hardest part was just waiting to get through all my summons at the end. It was my fight. So I knew, because he told me that, I knew that the Magus Sisters was like an somewhat easy strategy from a back pocket. Like, I could go in, I could run back.
I could sell all my crap, and I could get Yojimbo pretty quick. I could hunt down Anima pretty easily, and then I could do the stuff to do Magus Sisters. I knew that was a possibility, so it's like, I'll see how it goes. Seymour went down super fast.
Yeah.
All the enemies in the area went down super fast. So I'm like, I've got this. It shouldn't be a problem. I go into the final fight, and the first round I fight him, and I had a really bad luck streak. He killed Riku with stone, like, and then I'm down a character. And so that went really fast. And then after one character's gone, he does like 17 moves in a row. And then his overdrive is up, and then his overdrive is up, and then you're dead. So I'm like, okay, well, the first time was what it was. I'll try again. So I didn't change anything. I just went straight back for him and tried it again, because like he killed me so fast. That time I got to the second stage, and it took a lot longer, but he kind of did the same thing where I was fighting the stone, I was fighting Petrify, and then he killed Riku with Petrify again.
And then eliminates the character.
Right,
so you can't have 2 characters.
Yeah, you can't do nothing about it. All you can do is, use the 2 characters slots that you have. So then, that eventually wiped me out. I just fought really hard. I struggled with that fight to try and keep up, but it wasn't happening. So then the third time I went into it with like stone-proof stuff because I couldn't take it. Like, no more petrify, please. So that fight went significantly smoother. I mean, I beat it. But it still took me a good, like, almost an hour to kill him just because he has so much HP, and every round he's healing himself too at the same time. So it's like I'm attacking him down, then he'd heal himself, and then I'd have to heal me, and then I'd attack him down, and then he'd heal himself, and I'd have to heal me. So it was a slow process, but once I had the rhythm, I knocked him down, and then we had it done. Yevon was hard too, not because he kept killing me, which was fine because you have auto life indefinitely, but he would heal himself 9999, but my attacks were doing 9999.
Did you know you could put reflect on him?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But so like every time I was doing that, he was just healing himself. The best thing that happened was at some point he got all of the brakes on him. It must have been an automatic thing that happened, and his Kiraga was doing like half. So then I was doing 9999 and he was healing like 500 or 5,000. So then I was slowly able to whittle his health down. If I'd have known I could use reflect, I'd have done that, but I didn't know. So it's fine. But yeah, like that fight too took me like way longer than it probably should have. But I mean, again, I beat it. Like that's all that mattered. At the end of the day, I don't care how I did it. I did it. I do wish there was more relevant side quest stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit
before the podcast.
There is a lot of stuff you can do on the side, especially like if you're 100%ing it. Your Spear Grid, you've got Omega Ruins, but
it all feels empty though.
Your argument, which is fair, is that there's nothing pertaining to the story really afterwards. Like side quests. It's not even that. Like, yeah, there is nothing that really supports the story a whole lot. There's a little bit when you get the Aeons, like, Anima has a little bit to do with Seymour. Yojimbo is just an interesting character. But there's nothing, like, meaty about that. There's no real good story about it.
Yeah, there's nothing, like, really, like, learning anything about Yunaleska or just something deeper to, fill that need.
To make you want to do this.
Right. And then you look at like the other side quest stuff, like getting all of the celestial weapons. Half of those are tedious and boring and hard. Why would I do that? Like, I don't... There's nothing... If it's not fun, why in the world would I do it? It's not gonna... Obviously, it didn't really hurt me to not have it, because I was able to beat the game without all that equipment, without the extra Aeons. I did it. Like, it was a fight. Honestly, it might have been more fun than the way you did it.
Yeah.
So, like, why would I go through all that tedious work to...
When you can already be...
And it wasn't even fun. Like, I just don't understand. So, again, the side stuff is there. If you wanted to 100% it, if you love this game so much and you just want to be in it, awesome. But for me, when I'm looking at all this side stuff, I'm like, and I have to do a lot of battles to collect all those enemies, or I have to play that stupid Chocobo game 100 million times, or I have to dodge lightning bolts 200 times. Like, it's just stupid.
You played that Chocobo game so many times. At one point, I'm like, I have to go to bed.
I was pretty much done.
It just was funny.
My thought process was I wanted to give it a fair shot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play it as much as I could, as much as my patience would allow me to play. And I'm like, maybe I'll get lucky and I'll hit like a perfect score, really quick, and then I can get an easy celestial weapon. But no, it didn't happen. I didn't care, so I moved on.
Yes.
Oh man, gameplay. I liked seeing the turn list on the battles.
Yeah, that was nice.
It gave
you an idea of how to strategize, and it made you see how when you put a delay buster on,
how it affects,
or how you had haste, and they had options like there's a quick hit option, which meant that you could attack and have a quicker return rate of your character getting another.
I was wondering what that was.
And they also had quick use item or something like that, where it did the same thing. So it was nice being able to visually see, and like on the airship, you get to see where Sid is getting ready to actually move your airship and stuff. Like, it's nice knowing how to time out your stuff.
Right. So this game is very different in the way of the way they did the battle system turn-based. It's just turn-based. Like, you can sit with Titus active indefinitely, and there is no like active time to that. So, it takes the stress off of you to be quick in your menus to pick the right stuff, but also it gives you time to like really strategize, because you can see your turns. You can really think about how this next move is going to affect the rest of the fight. And that felt good.
Yeah.
That felt really good, especially when you plan stuff out and you're like, I think I can pull this off. And then you do, and it's so rewarding. It's so nice.
Yes.
And then, when you screw up and you look and you see boss, boss, it's like, oh no.
Well, too, the Aeons having the option of delaying a turn on your enemies, so they'll attack.
Yeah.
That's nice.
What's the one that Valfor does? Sonic
Wings?
Sonic Wings, yeah.
It's like, if you want,
you could do that for a long time.
You could kill the enemies, and you can also bump up your overdrive at the same time. By the end, I just sit there, the same thing over and over. Yeah.
Interesting. The Aeons level up with Yuna, but also towards the end of the game, you get I think it's with the Magus sisters, maybe. Where you get like the summoner's soul or something. Yeah,
and it gives
where
you can
beef.
You can
stats.
You can organize their attributes, which is their stats, and you get the option to you get two, I think. First one you get to deal with their attributes. The next one you get to help them learn moves. So if you want Bahamut to learn haste, or if you want Shiva,
you could do that. You could do that pretty early in the game. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could do that early in the game. I think when you
it's when you're fighting Lady Belgameme or whatever her name is.
Yeah, whatever her name is.
Where you're training your summons, basically.
Yep. And she shows you how to allow them to learn new abilities. But the abilities were like stupid expensive.
Yeah.
So I never did it. And then it became a point of, what's the point of even summoning if all I'm gonna do is their overdrive?
Yes. I don't know. Sometimes it was nice to like bump up some HP when I really needed it. But what I liked, what that to me added, was another element that I got to control as a player. Because you get to customize your weapons and armor, and you got to customize the sphere grids and how you wanted them to go. And you got to customize, like, your Aeons and stuff. And, like, and not only that, but they grow with Yuna. So when you're growing Yuna, I mean, it's nice. There's a good balance of what you control.
Crazy how much customization is in this game. I mean, at some point, everything gets maxed out, and everything is basically the same. Like, you could max out every single character to have all the same stuff. Yep. All the same maxed out stats. All of them have, breaking HP boundaries and damage boundaries. And, then every character is basically the same. But until that point, you have so much, like, strategy going on in your head. And every fight is a little bit unique. And, even the Aeons, because they play as characters, if they die, at least it's not Titus. At least it's not Yuna. But, so you have that opportunity if, like, you're, like, for the final fight, Jet's overdrive was full for me. He had, like, 10,000 HP left. I could have killed him pretty quick. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out a way so he doesn't kill me before
Right.
I kill him. So I brought out an Aeon because that Aeon could take on the brunt of that attack. And if the Aeon dies, that's all right.
Yeah.
I can sacrifice one Aeon for the better better majority of my game.
What's nice about that too is you worry that it would be a little OP in that regard too, but like when that Aeon's done in that fight, it's done. So like it sucks when
you're limited.
Yeah, but you don't want to be. You want to be limited to a certain degree. You need to have the challenge of, you want to have a good time. I guess I don't know. It's just it's not. I mean, Yuna is in control of really a whole nother set of characters,
exactly,
to a certain degree, and you don't want it to be.
And there's no real downside to them dying. Like, the only downside to them dying is you can't use them anymore. Where, like, if your characters die, they don't get AP, plus you gotta heal them back up. Where, like, the Aeons, whatever. They're irrelevant. It makes it really nice. It makes for that extra deeper level of strategy that other games just didn't have.
The only other problem I had with gameplay is that sometimes the camera views...
Oh, they were terrible.
Yeah, they weren't the best.
Yeah, you'd be walking down a hallway, and next thing you know, you gotta be like... you're turned around. And it's weird. It's weird. We kind of talked... Oh, go ahead.
Blitzball.
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about Blitzball.
We don't really have to go into much detail. It's not very well done.
The good news is Blitzball is entirely optional aside from one game. And that one game you have to play, and if you lose, no one cares. And most of us lose, so no one cares.
There is no proper tutorial. They have the tutorial, but it's like, they're like, hey, read all these insane rules. Good luck.
I went through the tutorial.
Did you?
Thinking that might help me. And then I learned that it's all stat based and that the other team has the advantage. And once I realized this, I'm like, done. I'm never going to play it again. Like, because I kind of thought, okay, I'm playing this for the podcast. I want to get as much about it as possible. Let's try and do the Blitzball stuff periodically. Maybe I'll try and get more characters, kind of like what I did with the card games and the other games. Yeah. So, like, I did the card games periodically, like, to just play it. This game is not like the card game at all. It's boring. Yeah. You have very little control over what happens. The stats are not stacked in your favor. Apparently, as you collect better players, it gets stupid easy, and then it's like a guaranteed win every single time, which is nice because there are some like perks to playing it. You get specialty items and stuff that you can't get anywhere else. But Blitzball is such a crap of a game that there's no reason anyone would really want to play it unless they are either, one, trying to get those items, or two, have like some sort of weird personality disorder that they think that Blitzball is a fun game.
The last time I played Final Fantasy X, which has been several years, I actually was able to play Blitzball and understand it. I retained none of that.
Really?
None.
It's not that hard to understand. Like... Basically, if they're doing this item, then the stats have to match up. Sometimes there's a random like extra bit in there, but like for the most part, it is what it is. Like it either hits or it doesn't hit, and it's all stat based. So if you're going for a shot, and this was the problem that I had, I didn't shoot at all when I played because all of my stats were terrible, and the goalie hit every single one. Yeah. And then like the opposite happened every time the opposing side went to take a hit, and I'm like, there's no way.
Honestly, I am not a sports person. I hate sports. I think it's very boring. It was like sitting and watching a football game to me. I might as well have been watching a football game.
Yeah, it
was not. I almost wish there was like commentary going on in the background, because at least like, or just some like them joking around and making, and I think they kind of do.
What's Titus doing? He's an idiot.
Yeah,
they kind of do have commentary in the like the story portion of it,
Yeah.
but like the gameplay portion of it, there's no commentary. It's just dumb.
Boring. So
Yeah,
boring. Yeah. But thankfully they did make it optional for the most part.
Yeah, you only have to play that one game, and even that,
Yeah.
I think that's the first time you actually get to play Blitzball, so like, it's not like you're going into it, well, I'm well practiced.
Yeah.
Like, no one's well practiced at that point because you don't play.
Did you get the jet shot? Did
Yeah,
you do
I
that?
did.
Yeah.
I did. I tried really hard to get it. I did it on the first try because I thought it was going to be all hard, and it wasn't. But yeah, I got it and didn't use it.
Yep. Naturally. Yep.
Last thing, the Seymour fight on Mount Gagazet is really hard. And then I think I did it like 3 times, give or take. And then I realized that Riku can use fire gems.
Oh, yeah.
And fire gems does like 500 times 5 to Seymour. And it made it stupid easy. Like, haste on Riku, fire gems all day long. Seymour just like ate a bunch of fire gems and went to sleep. Yeah, I know. The sound is really funny.
Did you know that you could cast poison on him?
I did on this on his final form.
Yeah, I remembered that from the last time I had played, so I threw poison on him all the time, and man, poison does a lot of damage.
I'm sure it probably helped, yeah.
Of course, it does a lot of damage when it's on your characters, too, but it is kind of nice. Yeah, there was a certain imbalance in certain ways, but on the other hand, it was well-balanced otherwise, too. Like, it's gonna be difficult.
The basic fighting and gameplay overall is pretty solid.
It's gotta be difficult making up new stuff and making sure it's well balanced.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes it does fall short. So.
Well, the funny thing is, this is the last turn-based Final Fantasy game. So, like, in the main series, anyway. Yeah. So, like, after this, their turn-based is no more. And every game is vastly different from the game before. So, when I don't know what 11 is like. I've never ever played 11, but like 12 vastly different from 10. 13 vastly different from 12, 10 and anything before it. Like, so we're never going to see this battle system again.
Sad.
In the Final Fantasy main series. And I think that this was a very solid way to go out with it. I do wish that it was a little bit speedier. And 10-2, I guess I lie. Well, 10-2 is not technically a main series game, right? Like, it's a sequel to a main series game. But like 10-2, I think perfected it even more so. Like, I was going through and testing a bunch of games that I have laying around, and 10-2 was in that lot that I was testing. And 10-2's battle system is so fast, and it's so smooth, and it feels good.
We'll definitely have to play it.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it. A lot of people give 10-2 crap, and I think it's fun. I think we'll enjoy it. Well, you want to move on to music?
Music.
I gave it a 10.
10. Final Fantasy 10.
It's great. It's a Final Fantasy game.
See, music is almost too easy because, like, unless we're sitting here and like sing the songs, like, it's all you can really say is like really good songs, amazing songs. I don't want to say catchy because some of them are catchy, but like perfect for the kind, like your location it's
and themed really well.
Just well done.
The only one that really got on my nerves was the battle system one, just because. I forgot to talk about that for the battle system.
No.
For the gameplay. Real quick, I want to mention how terrible.
Yeah, the enemy encounter rate.
The enemy encounter rate is insane.
It gets worse the farther you go, I swear. At one point, you finally get weapons for no encounters, and it was the best decision I made.
I thought that there was somewhere because I kind of remembered doing that before, but I had no idea how to get them. I didn't know where they were. I didn't have any. So, like, I was struggling with random encounters up until the end.
I'm sorry.
And it hurt. Like, every 2 steps,
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
At one point I just started fleeing. Because Titus, if I took Riku out of my party and just had Titus,
I was doing well. See, I was actually using Riku. Riku would go first, Yuna would go second, and Titus would go third. So I would do steal, flee.
Yeah.
So then at least I'm like taking stuff with me. Sorry, little tangent from gameplay, but I wanted to make sure that was known that I hated the random encounter rate. It was too much. Back to music. Still amazing.
I liked the Firefly sounds.
Oh, I know, they like screamed. I was doing that one day, and one of our cats came running to me like, "Are you okay?
Oh, no.
What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just fireflying."
The Fireflies, it's sad because they're kind of like souls, but they're so pretty and iridescent, and it's such an innocent little...
And when you kill an enemy, that like little explosion of fireflies, and then they all go like...
When Sin is defeated, you hear all the fireflies, and it's horrible, but it's sort of adorable. You hear them all going, ah!
They actually... Around here, I've seen fireworks that are fireflies.
Oh, really?
They make the same sound and everything, and they like we used to call them ghosts.
Oh,
so like they would go off, and there are these like white firework streaks, and they would like zigzag across the sky, and they usually came out in like sets of 5, and they'd all like go ah, and they're like ah. It was just like the fireflies.
Cute.
Sorry, tangent.
The hymn used as a plot was kind of interesting. It wasn't the best. You know, you're joking, but you and I both know that we have sung that at times we weren't even playing this game. Just go around, like, we can sing it.
I know.
But to have it as like an actual plot thing is kind of interesting. Anyway.
Sure, yeah.
Just an interesting thing on the side. The only other thing that I really wrote down of interest, I think, would be the in-battle dialogue of occasionally if you've got like certain characters in your party, they'll have dialogue between each other, or they'll just say something like, like, that's a big bird, or something like that. That's kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
And just, I liked that. It was interesting.
I won't go so easy on you next time.
Not so much those, but yes. Live and let live. I have a video that I took that I had saved from my Switch, and Oren, it opens the battle, and Oren goes, "I hate this place." I was like, that's me. I love Oren. I hate this place. Yes, I too. I think I was in Xanarkand.
The voice acting was... Okay, so everyone makes fun of that, but like...
I don't know, it makes sense. It's just,
it does make sense with the right context, with the correct
still
context.
Cringe to me.
It is, but only because I feel like we've made it cringe.
Maybe.
Like it's designed to be an awkward scene, right? So like the context is they're...
Okay, if I'm fake laughing, I am not fake laughing like that.
But that's the whole entire purpose. So Titus is sad because of his dad or something, and he's complaining to Yuna about this.
He's mad about Oren. Oren has joined, and he's forced to... Oh yeah, but I guess he would be mad about his
it was
dad.
something about his... Anyway, he's whining and complaining to Yuna about it, and Yuna's just like, when I'm having days where I don't want to feel happy, I put on a smile, and if I can't put on a smile, I force myself to laugh. And the whole idea was forcing yourself to laugh makes you... It's so awkward that it makes you genuinely laugh and genuinely smile. And that's the direction they were heading with this scene, is that, ha 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 ha, it's funny, it's goofy, it's weird, it's meant to be. So, that scene, it's been given a lot of hate from the memes lately, but it's not as bad of a scene as people make it up to be.
But
overall, the voice acting is not bad.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is.
Yeah.
The worst thing that I noticed, and I don't think it's a voice actor issue as much as it is a programming issue, but sometimes Titus would talk normal, and other times he would talk at like double, triple speed, and it made scenes like really awkward.
I know what you're talking. I know exactly what you're talking about. Probably know exactly which scenes you're talking about. And it's like he would talk like this, and then really quick.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense in the context. It didn't make sense from even a programming point of view. There was plenty of time to make that statement in the cutscene transition, so why?
One of the times he's actually just talking inside his head, or like the monologue that he does while he's telling a story, and he says something along the lines of, "I wanted to see this place again, but with Yuna by my side."
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Why was that part so quickly? With Yuna by my side. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's the one. That's the one that I was thinking of too.
Yeah,
I just don't understand. But again, otherwise, for the most part, for this being the first Final Fantasy game that was entirely voice acted, pretty solid job.
Oren's my favorite.
They all sound really good. I really like Riku's voice actor. I think Riku sounds really just like a friendly, bubbly character, and I appreciate that. I think it's fun. I think she adds a bit of humor just with her like bubbliness.
She compliments Titus's goofy side.
Yeah, she does.
You know whose voice actor that I really like to listen to talk to? Lady Yunaleska. It's like the way she articulated her words was like, man, I could listen to her read an audiobook.
She's very adult female sounding, like mature, like a mature, sexy female voice.
It's
like,
even that.
I don't know, it's weird.
It's just, it's like she's reading this formally, like if she was reading formal text, and it's just her voice, like the way she would pop some of her letters and phonics, is just like, man, that's so like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like almost ASMR for talking. I don't know. It was weird, but I liked it.
The only voice actor that bothered me probably the most would be Jet's. And it's simply because he sounds like an announcer for a movie coming this fall. Like, it's literally that voice. Like the movie announcer voice.
It's kind of fitting in a certain way because he's
such a rough guy. Yeah. And it is.
What I think is really funny is the sound music aside, this is one of the things that drives me nuts about Jet's character design is he's all scratched up and damaged, and he was like that before he arrived to Spira. What happened?
What happened to this poor guy?
How bad was he? Like, how Blitzball's dangerous. Like he's funny, like, roughed up.
It's funny that you bring that up because I noticed, and I kind of had that like sub thought of, man, what happened to him? But like you forming it into spoken word is just like, yes, me too. I need to know what happened to him. Why is he so scarred up?
They're a dream, so like, what? They obviously don't have any enemies.
Okay, no, they're dreamt up.
Yes.
But they still live their lives in Zanarkand. So they're not like a dream. They're just...
They're within a controlled environment, though.
It's almost like a simulation. It's not... Don't think of it as dreaming. Think of it as a program simulation.
Right.
And Titus is a character in that program simulation. But yeah, like, there's probably no fiends in this program simulation. There might have been, but probably not.
I don't know. Again, that's going back to just the unexplained. It's so frustrating.
We can sit and turn this over 100 million times.
Yes.
Sute ki dane, or no. Sute
oh my gosh.
Ki
I am
na
so
de.
sorry.
Yes. That song, I really like it.
Yeah.
it's not the kind of song that I would necessarily like listen to just like in the car or anything, but like it sets a really good mood in the game. And
perfect timing.
Yeah.
Perfect atmosphere.
And
good
like
song.
the lyrics fit pretty well to the atmosphere of the song too. It's a solid song for this game. And they've been doing this audio like a high quality performed song since Final Fantasy VIII. So like this isn't a new feature that they've done, but this one is probably the best one out of them.
Very iconic, yes.
Otherwise, Seymour's theme for that final...
The man with the machine gun?
That's what I was gonna say. So
you have all the credit for that. I didn't even think about it till you said it. I was like, oh,
it is.
Yes.
So yeah, Seymour's theme in Final Fantasy X, the final fight with Seymour, is essentially Man with the Machine Gun remix. And, like, when you listen to it, you don't really notice it, but you're like, man, this is jamming. And then all of a sudden, for me, it just, like, clicked, and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
This is just Man with a Machine Gun, just like a remix of it. It's like the same, like, sound, the same rhythm, the same, like, dun 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 dun. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, it's just a remix of a song I've already heard.
Are amazing songs.
They are. They're perfectly good in their own right, but, like... I mean, I prefer the original, I think.
Yeah.
Seymour's theme is really good. I love the intro, the chimes that kick that... that kick that song off is really cool and is very Final Fantasy X.
The only song that I don't like about Seymour's is the, like, ambient, like... you know, when he's walking into a room, he's got that creepy music going on.
Oh, yeah. The music of, this is a villain.
Yeah. But, like, his actual battle music for all of them are really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Which, if you're going to be fighting a guy multiple times, they better be good.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because this one is the first one where the final boss isn't like the main antagonist.
Yeah.
Like I guess to some degree from Titus's perspective, he is the main antagonist, but you know, it's neat to see that Seymour, he's just an evil person and you're taking down just like a regular evil person who has like higher magic stats where like Jet is like not an evil person, but like the concept of him being sin is what's evil, you know? I don't know, it's just interesting take. So yeah, music, 10 out of 10.
10 out
great,
of 10.
Great stuff. Overall, I can't imagine it being any better musically.
So what'd you give it for overall?
Overall, I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I also gave it a 9 out of 10.
I enjoyed it a lot. There's a few things that would have been a little better. It's funny because I struggled with the score because every time I sat down to play this game, I wasn't like super excited to play. But having beat it, I really love the story. I really like the world that they've constructed and the lore behind it, and I'm glad that they've made a 10-2. I don't remember 10-2's story so super well, like as far as the world building perspective, but to know that there is a sequel to this game that, you know, you can see the progress that Spirit has made is really cool. You know, because here now, the way that they've ended 10, you have the Eternal Calm. And now people are free to build cities and grow and, you know, really propel themselves forward in life instead of being knocked down every 10 years.
Did you know that there was an interview done, and I think the question came up if there was a possibility of a 10-3, and they said that it was never not impossible, and people had speculated what 10-3 would be about.
They actually just recently confirmed that 10-3's story is already fleshed out.
Really?
That 10-3 has been like conceptualized for years, and they just have never had the budget or the time to be able to do it.
You know what I would really like out of a 10-3 would be a prologue. of Braska.
That would be
story.
really cool. That would be very, very cool.
I don't think that's what it is, but that would be really cool.
They always talked about a 10-3 being Riku's story. I don't know what that would entail, but I would like to see Titus come back.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
I think they mocked up some design of what they would look like, and I had seen him, and it was interesting. Cool. Yeah.
What these characters would look like with today's technology, that would be really cool. I wonder if they would keep a lot of it similar to Final Fantasy X.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. But it's done. We're done with Final Fantasy X.
47 out of 50.
Oh yeah, 47 out of 50 for me too. So it's a 9.4 out of 10.
Wow.
So that's pretty good. I mean, it's not Chrono Trigger, but
that was the thing when we're scoring, because this game was not perfect. There was a lot of stuff, but it was still really good.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot for the game as a whole, right? Like, it's every individual item is solid in its own right. Yeah, there's downfalls, and yeah, it's not as perfected and polished as it probably could have been, but
it still needs. You need to play it.
We still very much enjoyed our time playing it. Obviously, I mean, the scores, it is what it is. I even tried to go through, because I kind of felt like, I don't know, being so close to a perfect score doesn't seem right, because I don't know if I enjoyed it that much. But you start thinking about, well, where would I knock it down, and why would I knock it down any lower than a 9? Like, I can't. I can't. Yeah. Like, there's no reason to. So, really, obviously, the game stands for itself. Like, it really is a decent game to play. It's not surprising that they've ported it out as many times as they have. And if there is a 10-3, I absolutely would jump on it. I mean, I'm at this point, it's been so long that I can't imagine how they would play it out, but it would be cool. It would be cool. And I mean, I could see us playing 10-2 very soon. I mean, not, tomorrow, but
I've already beaten it, Danny.
What? I don't think it's that long. I think it's shorter than Final Fantasy X, yeah. So yeah, guys, thanks all so much for listening to this podcast episode. I know it's been a long one. Thanks for sticking it out. Our next podcast episode right now is planned to be Pocahontas. The next couple months are going to be really busy for me personally. I got a couple of vacation planned. And just like the holidays are starting to sneak up on us too, which is insane. So, for the next foreseeable, podcast episodes, they're probably going to be a little bit smaller games like Pocahontas. It's Disney's Pocahontas on the Sega Genesis, which will be our first and only Sega Genesis game so far. So that's fun.
Yeah.
I've never actually played a Sega Genesis game all the way through ever in my entire life, because we grew up on Super Nintendo, so it'll be a new experience for us. The next RPG, we haven't really decided.
There's so many options.
We have talked about possibly playing Final Fantasy XI towards the beginning of next year. But we'll let you guys know as we come up on that. We have played the first 9, now 10 Final Fantasy games. So if you want to listen to those podcast episodes, make sure you check us out at ZapNight.com, where you can see all of our past podcast episodes. But we don't just do RPGs. We also do all sorts of stuff like Pocahontas that's coming up next. But also we've done the Spyro series. We've done some Resident Evil. We've done
Cool Spot.
Some older ones. Yeah. So check us out if any of that sounds interesting. Let us know what you think, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.